Welcome to Meadowbrook Memories Podcast. I am Jelly, otherwise known as Glacier Prince, and my co-host is Hitchcock, otherwise known as Alfred Henry. Our mission on this podcast series is to explore the stories behind the magic that was created at Meadowbrook. When over a span of 4 years, between 1982 and 1986, we saw the transformation of a small coeducational school with less than 1,200 students, 800 boys, 800 girls and 400 boys into a successful sports and scholastic champion, winning 7 major trophies, 3 Sunlight Cup, 2 Topping Cup, 1 Walker Cup, and 1 Nutriment Shield. And to crown these achievements, Meadowbrook also produced 2 Rhodes Scholars, Cavell Creighton in 1987 and Andrea Wright in 1989, both graduates of Meadowbrook in 1983. In this podcast series, we'll be speaking to persons, both males and female, who were actively involved in this incredible journey, along with friends and staff at Meadowbrook, which inspired the environment which created this golden era. We hope you enjoy our discussion. Please give us as much support and encouragement as you can on whatever social media platform you are listening. Welcome and thanks for joining us. Alright, ready? Go. Today is Saturday, January 7th, 2023, and welcome back to another conversation about Meadowbrook memories. Me, as usual, Glacier, our Lance, our Prince, our Jelly, and any one of those names will do. Our co-host today, and yes, we have 2 because our guest is a man of substance and history, and we thought it best to get all information from him. Plus, we want to talk about his little brother. He's no longer with us and would have deserved a podcast on his own right because of his achievement at Meadowbrook as a big-time track star. Anyway, our first co-host don't really need no introduction because he's my lifelong friend, and I've been on this conversation before as a guest on episode number 8, and I've been co-host on a number of occasions. So Meadowbrook members, welcome back, Douglas Crooks. The next co-host don't need no introduction either because he's also a lifelong friend of mine, and I've been on this conversation as guest. Episode number 29, I've been a co-host on a number of occasions. I was the first man to score a century in a schoolboy cricket for Meadowbrook. So Meadowbrook members, welcome back. Big Bats, Christopher Cheddar, who happens to be a classmate of the brothers of tonight's guest. And in true Meadowbrook members fashion, we have to give our guest a proper introduction. He started Meadowbrook in 1972, the same year as my brother Patrick did. He was a founding member and past president of the Key Club. He was Sergeant Major of Meadowbrook High School Cadet Unit. He was the first student elected to the school board at Meadowbrook, and this we have to talk about a whole heap. He was head boy in 1979-80, and he was brother to the first athlete who won a gold medal at Champs for Meadowbrook. And for the record, the most prestigious event in track and field, Class 3 100 meters, is not curling we're talking about her in a full event, big time 100 meter runner. Just in case anybody want to underestimate the pedigree and the contribution of this family to Meadowbrook history. Finally, he can correct me about this incident because I remember him being the first or the second man from Meadowbrook to land a helicopter on Meadowbrook campus. But we get into that, Vivian, don't worry. But without further ado, Meadowbrook memories, welcome Vivian Thomas, or as plenty would know him at school because his brother did have bigger name than him early. Older brother to the late great Howard Thomas, first Meadowbrook first gold medal athlete at Boys Champ. So Vivian, introduce yourself, brother.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you, Lance. I want to thank you, Douglas and Christopher, for being here with me and for giving me the opportunity to recollect these memories for the record. You know, Meadowbrook is a great school. Many people contributed to its greatness, and so we know different segments of that story. And I am glad to be able to fill in the blanks and add my bit to the whole narrative, so that all of listeners, Meadowbrookers far and wide, will have a better understanding of the history and development of our great school.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Vivian. And for the record, what year you started, Meadowbrook?
Well, I entered Meadowbrook in 1972, I think. 1972.
I think that's right. You
In
got the
that,
same year Patrick
so,
enter too. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yes.
Yeah, man. So thank you, Vivian. I'll get tonight. We're now gonna start. Get nice little introduction. So Douglas, reintroduce back yourself, my brother.
Well, Douglas Crooks, I am a Meadowbrook product, and I love that school, and that school put my life on the map, and it gave me a very good foundation for the qualities of life that you need. And I'm happy to be a part of this community. I'm happy to know you guys and happy to fellowship here. So again, Douglas Crooks, giving thanks for 60 years, 60 years on this earth and giving thanks. And just happy to have this camaraderie and fellowship and to move forward this legacy that we're putting together for Meadowbrook, for posterity, that we can have something for the future because no day is promised for us. So this is Douglas Crooks.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And Chris, Cheddar,
I will
introduce
be,
yourself, my brother. Yeah.
I'll be brief. Meadowbrook High School, 1977 to 1985, and I adopt everything that Dougie just said.
Hey, that's
was
going to
easy.
cost you.
That was easy. All right, Vivian. So by now, I know you have been listening to some of the conversation. I know the first question I asked every guest who come on this conversation: did you choose Meadowbrook or Meadowbrook chose you?
Well, Lance, I chose Meadowbrook. I lived in Haven in Meadowbrook on an avenue called Lorna Avenue, and my neighbor was Stedman Mason, who happened to be a head boy at Meadowbrook and a very impressive gentleman in his own right. He obtained a track scholarship from Meadowbrook to the University of Nebraska, and my father saw him, as a neighbor and admired him greatly. So across the road also lived the Irvings, Columbus Irving. He's also another product of Meadowbrook. And we knew Oliver Davidson, another product of Meadowbrook, from Church of the Transfiguration. So surrounded by these gentlemen, my father decided very early that Meadowbrook was the place for me. And we never wavered from that.
A full disclosure, Vivian, believe it or not, Stedman, I've been on this podcast, Stedman Mason, and
yes,
he was married to my older sister for a couple of years in the 1980s. I don't know if you had known that.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, man. But he had been on this podcast. His podcast probably come out in a couple of weeks. So I didn't know it was Lorna Avenue him live on, because he had talks him used to live in Meadowbrook and all of it. That is some history we have together, yeah.
Lived next to me, and he lived with him. He boarded with him over there.
Who's
that,
Vivian? Sorry.
What's that, Lance?
No, you were saying something I didn't quite hear you.
Yes, I was saying that Stedman lived next to me. His uncle actually was the owner of the house, and Stedman lived with him, and attended Meadowbrook from right next door.
Okay.
Yes.
So which prep school you used to go, Vivian, or primary school? Like, I'm not sure which one you used to go.
That's a very interesting conversation, Lance, and it speaks right to what we're about to discuss. Now, back in the day when I was going to primary, having my primary education, we never had free education in Jamaica. So back in those days, high schools used to pay to attend. It was in the same year that Meadowbrook was founded in 1958 that the government brought in the free places. You had 2,000 scholarships for the whole island, and about 10,000 high school places were available island-wide. So 8,000 of the spaces in high school went to people who could afford to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And 2,000 people got scholarships. So the neighbors and everybody suggested to my father that to secure a space for me in Meadowbrook, it's best that I go to the prep school, Meadowbrook Prep School, because they would have a few spaces reserved for persons coming from the prep school. But at the time, the tuition was £2, 10 shillings a term. And he was not able to afford it because he had other expenses. So I ended up going to St. Richard's on Red Hills Road,
Yeah.
which turned out to be a great blessing in itself. Because when I was there were many other persons there who distinguished themselves at Meadowbrook. You know, the Scott brothers, Michael, Paul, and Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
We all went to St. Richard's together. Nigel Ferguson, who is now very active in the school's PTA.
Mm-hmm.
Who and I went to St. Richard's together. Derek Gordon, a number of other people, you know, we came across from St. Richard's together. So it was quite a rewarding time.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at all, Vivian. A whopping £2.10 and your father couldn't afford it, eh?
Yes, man, that was the fee for a term at prep school at Meadowbrook Prep back in the 1960s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And was quite onerous, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So you had no doubt at all. You had no regrets, not regrets. You had no doubt at all that you wanted. It wasn't your choice. Your father said you had to go Meadowbrook. Are you also impressed with Stedman and the people around you? That is a Meadowbrook, is it?
So what happened now? How the school was structured back in those days? It was a community school, you know. So Meadowbrook and Havendale was fairly new. You could stay from my house in Meadowbrook and look and see where the post office is on Chancery Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could look all the way up there, and there were no houses in between.
Mm-hmm.
What you used to have a lot of it was an orchard, a mango orchard, you know. So you would have a lot of trees, and you know people would be planting callaloo and that sort of thing on the lot as you were walking around. So the school sort of came up to serve that new community, and most of the people who were there who attended the school, I would say they came from within a 20-mile radius. You know, probably like Duhaney Park, Hughenden, Meadowbrook,
Permacal, where you from? Permacal, yeah.
Pembroke, yes. Or you could draw like a 20-mile circle around the school, and that is where most of the people came from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was very exciting. You know, you walked to school. The school was new, and you know, back in those days, you know, well, the school was fairly small. Also, I think we had like about when I got there were 470 people there. I think, including boys and girls.
Mm-hmm. All right, talk about that as you mentioned. The first day on the campus, what was it like walking on the middle? Were you there before? Did you visit the school before that time?
Well, yes, in my wanderings about the community, I would have wandered onto the campus, you know, because the school was and remains a sort of a gathering point for the community. So even people who did not attend the school tended to congregate there, you know, people who lived in the area and were from other schools, young people, they would congregate there. And then a lot of people attended the United Church, the Meadowbrook United Church, and its youth activities, and that took place more or less on the school campus. Sometimes they used the assembly hall. So, you know, we had a wide mix of children from all around congregating on the school.
Yeah, there's a great function there. I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
it not only served the students, the persons attending, but the wider community as well.
Yeah, I know I say where that come from because even when I was going to school, it's like a whole heap of people that were living at the area. We like them go Meadowbrook and them don't really go Meadowbrook, but they are there after school. So
Yes.
that's what you're talking about. Yes, yeah.
In truth and in fact, there were Meadowbrook wannabes. You know?
Young ladies.
Yes. I think Douglas hit the nail on the head. We had some quality young women at the school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Attracted a lot of fellows from around the area, you know, to profile generally on the campus.
Yes.
So right about that, Vivian, I'm going to use that one. Meadowbrook wannabes, yeah, them go under a big name. I when I call them name, because when I embarrass them, and them come to Meadowbrook every evening, and them go and let them the proud for their Meadowbrook. Exactly.
Yes.
See, what they were doing is coming there and looking out the side of their eyes on our beautiful Meadowbrook family, more so the ladies. You understand?
Yeah, definitely.
You're so right.
Yes, they were sideways looking.
So the school, based on what you're saying, Vivian, you come on the school, the first day on the campus would not have been intimidating for you because you're familiar with the place. What was the first day like when you walk on the campus? No other as a student in 1972? What was it like?
Right. So coming from St. Richards now, where I was a fairly senior man, when I arrived on the campus, there are a number of things that were new at that time. A lot of guys were still wearing short pants to school then.
I remember that.
At Meadowbrook. And you had some of us now who got various innovations like zippers in the front of our pants, because a lot of guys still had to use the buttons, where your pants. And so we came there with long pants, zip,
Yeah.
and so in the first form. But when we arrived, you had at the time a number of guys, who to us looked like adults, because they had beards, and they had afros. And then the country at the time was going through a sort of social transformation. So a number of middle-class youth were adhering to the Rastafari faith, and they were like down at Bottomfield smoking ganja and that sort of thing. So the staff at the time was grappling, with a lot of the social changes that were happening in the wider Jamaica. Mm-hmm. So the fellas, they had on the long sleeve khaki shirt, the BOAC bag. After school, they would put on like the Rasta belt and thing, and we were small boys in the school, but they sort of made happenings in the school. It revolved around the guys who were like from 4th to 6th form. I think they were the stars of that era, They were the prominent fellows after school. They were the ones who held the conversation. You could get lots of conversations on the divinity of His Imperial Majesty, things like that.
Yeah, man. Like, Imperial Majesty are coming at 66 and inspired a whole group of them for sure, Vivian. Yes.
So like out at Pekka, these were like the sort of conversations that took place, and then you had other adherents now, because the thing was island-wide, it's not only at Meadowbrook, the revolution taking place. So there were guys from other schools, KC and so, who were out at Pekka in the evening also with the Meadowbrook students debating these topical things in the society. So it was a very interesting and exciting time to be at school.
Hold on, Vivian, you mentioned something. You went to school and said Pekka. Pekka was there when you went there?
Yeah, man. Pekka was there.
Okay. I'm trying to find out when Pekka came, but I know when he left, but I don't know when he came yet. But so we know it before 1972 then. So, yeah.
An institution. So, but back in those days, the three-wheel cart was a very popular transport, Yeah, as time went on, they sort of became unserviceable and faded away. And I would say Pekka was one of the last men to maintain an operational one, Mm-hmm. But back in the 1970s, you used to have some very prominent people, on Red Hills Road. You had a set of plumbers that everybody used. Mr. Wilson, he had a fleet of like about 3 of those three-wheel cars and some motor scooters, where when your pipe burst at home and call him, he would arrive in one of them, So they were very popular. And in those early days, you had things, Purity Bakery, you were still delivering bread in Hamdale by horse and cart, You had a mule cart that would come around with your bread, to deliver to the houses. People would still be putting milk on your gate column, So Jamaica was kind of in a transition, at that time, transitioning to modernity,
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned something, Vivian, and I can't make it slip in. You mentioned three-wheel cart. And all around my mind was the three-wheel coffin. It's like me. was the three-wheel coffin? I don't know if I've never seen it. I hear about it. But because I mentioned three-wheel cart, that came about the myth because there was a lot of three-wheel cars at the time.
No, I don't know what caused the rumor, but that at that time when that came about, I was still at primary school. That was probably like in about 69, 70, I think, Mm-hmm. Where some people claim to have seen. Back in those days, people say a whole heap of apparition, and they were expecting a lot of things, based on the prophecies of Marcus Garvey and His Imperial Majesty. You could, you could see a lot of things happening, It's when the 3 sevens were supposed to clash. We were all waiting for something.
Yes.
You had points when in history when things came together and there was great expectation in the society, you know. So with this three-wheel coffin now, back in those days, a lot of people were superstitious, and apparently people who were in the occult used to subscribe to a man by the name of D. Lawrence. You know, he was an American occultist, and you could write to him to obtain books on the occult, you know. So the persons who practiced, you know, Wobia occultism and so would write to D. Lawrence, and it is out of some problems with that grouping of people that all of these apparitions began to appear, you know. But I'm not so sure. I never saw it, you know, but I have been in crowds who have been rushing to have a look at it, you know.
Oh, but I can tell you that thing caused me not to sleep for a long time. I don't know if it was the Jonku in his Jonku, you know, the Jonkuno stuff. Yeah, but I can tell you it drove fear in me, maybe because I was so young and not knowing what this thing was. And I tell you, that thing scared me for a while. I couldn't sleep at nights thinking about, is this thing coming into the home?
Right.
Yeah.
But Vivian, you mentioned something else, and I don't want to go too deep in it, you know, but I didn't know. Because I grew up and hear about D. Lawrence, you know. I thought it was a Jamaican thing. I didn't know it was somebody from America whose name was D. Lawrence.
Yes.
Yes. I didn't know that history at all. Chris, you didn't know that history there?
I heard of it, but I never did pay any attention to any of it.
Yeah.
All right, so Vivian, I'm going to go back to Meadowbrook. I don't want to go too much in the occult at all, because that's what this... So when you come to Meadowbrook now, Vivian, what's some of the students that may remember when you come in a first farm in 1972?
Oh, I remember Bert Samuels. He was like our head boy and thing, a very impressive gentleman in his own right. And then there was Courtney Holmes, who stayed on after graduation to become a lab assistant working with Mrs. Headlam. So we got to know.
Yeah.
Tito, yep.
And then you had Big Brown, Diego, a number of other guys. Keith White was there, you know. Andre Smith was also there.
That's the Bursa's son?
Yes. Mrs. was the Bursa, you know. So there were three Smiths there, you know. Andre, his brother, and his sister. I can't remember their names exactly now, but the three of them were there.
Yeah, three of them were at Meadowbrook at the time. I don't remember them names. I don't remember the sisters. I think a brother named Derek. Younger brother
Derek.
Derek. Yes.
His father was known as Slim. He was quite troubled.
Yeah.
Derek entered Meadowbrook with Derek and Howard.
Here, okay.
In 77, yeah.
You remember the sister name, Chris?
Allison,
okay. I try to remember her name.
Yeah, they've done Meadowbrook very proud because Andre, I think, is some major ship pilot for Jamaica. He is outstanding. Derek is, I believe, the CEO of City of Kingston Credit Union. So they have done Meadowbrook, and I'm sure the sisters are very proud because they have stamped their mark on the landscape in Jamaica for sure. So kudos to them.
Well, one thing I'd like to also point out to our listeners, you know, at the founding of Meadowbrook, when Meadowbrook was founded in 1958, independence was imminent, you know. People were agitating for independence, and a lot of the prominent people in Jamaica, like the Reverend Ward and the Reverend Saunders, you know, people who have influence, thought that they would make a contribution to national development through education. So a number of schools were founded around that time, you know, Excelsior, Meadowbrook, Arden. And the aim of these schools was to provide citizens, you know, who could actually build and make a contribution to the newly emerging Jamaica. So Meadowbrook fulfilled its mandate in that regard, you know. We were encouraged, you know, to have the values of cooperation, fairness, and justice. That was one of the things that the Reverend Ward spoke about. Because when I was at Meadowbrook, you know, Miss McLennan, of course, and Mr. Thorpe, first Mr. Thorpe and then Miss McLennan were the principal. And the Reverend Ward was still alive, and he would make visits to the school occasionally. Sometimes they were unannounced. And when he addressed us as students, now you got the rest of the day off to go and contemplate what you heard. So when I arrived home, my parents always wanted to know what the Reverend Watt said, because he was such a prominent and influential and respected person, that when he opened his mouth, people listened. Yeah, so that was how it was at Meadowbrook. That at that time as a schoolboy, the Reverend Ward was definitely one of the greatest men that I ever saw.
Yeah.
So what some of the classmates that you meet when you come in our first farm, Vivian? It was at the time. It was how much building was at Meadowbrook? Describe the building and the atmosphere of the place. Because I remember when I came in 1974, all I remember them at the willow tree, and there was no gate. There was no wall, as I say, at Meadowbrook.
Right. When you came in, you entered through the gate. To the right, you had the assembly hall with a little annex that was an administrative area upstairs. That was Mr. Thorpe's office. And then you had the 3-story block and the library in front of the netball court. That was about it. But one of the things about Meadowbrook, for a school that a new school, it started out with many laboratories. It had a physics lab, a chemistry lab, and zoology and botany were taught there. So even more established schools throughout Jamaica did not have laboratory facilities, and some of them didn't even have sixth forms. We didn't have a sixth form initially, but we eventually had one, but we had the facilities, the lab facilities. So by the time I got to Meadowbrook, a lot of people who had an interest in studying medicine or being in the medical profession came there because zoology and botany was taught. So as a result, we have graduated quite a few people in the medical field stemming from that.
Yeah. Yes, said man about that to say, it was Mr. Top at one him say him shouldn't go to Nebraska. I'm sure that's say and go UA. When he came,
yes.
Because I just say our Meadowbrook are well known in terms that with them contribution towards the medical profession in Jamaica.
Yeah.
That is
yes.
Without doubt. Because my mind
runs
go ahead, Vivian, sorry.
And just in other areas of good citizenship, not all of our past students are heralded in the press and in public, but we who know them, know that on to solidly contribute to Jamaica.
Definitely.
Solidly,
Well, you and Keith start a great tradition because the current Brigadier General looked up to you guys. He was inspired by. He has been on this program before, Brigadier Raj Mason. He has talked about seeing you guys, and that's what inspired him to become what he is today. So the tradition.
Well, it is interesting, one of the times when I landed at Meadowbrook, what had happened, we received a request for to do a careers day there, Now Keith White, he was in charge of he was the operations officer for the JDF Air Wing. So all requests for the unit to be deployed would come through him. And we got a request for to send somebody, to give a career talk at Meadowbrook. So whenever that happens, both of us will always get together. When Meadowbrook wants anything, we try our best to provide it personally. So he said to me, well, go to Meadowbrook there and deliver a career talk there. So I and another gentleman, we flew there, landed on netball court and so. And at the time, now Raj, he was the deputy head boy of the school. And he actually heard the career talk and had a look at the helicopter and everything and said that when he was motivated to consider the army as a career. So it just goes to show, how there is continuity in these things.
Yeah, man. He has been at this program and talk about that. But talk about that, Vivian. You were the first, is that right? To land the helicopter at school, or Keith did it before you?
Well, Keith came once before me, but to tell you the truth, if I'm to be very honest, the first person to land a helicopter at Meadowbrook was a man called Andrew Bogle. He was the brother of Headmaster Bogle, of Don Bogle.
Oh, Mr. Bogle's brother. Mr. Bogle about him. Okay, yeah.
Also, before us. and he actually flew to Meadowbrook to visit his brother and landed on the court there, you know.
On the netball court too?
Or on the playing field. Back
On
in
the
those
playing
days, you
field.
know.
Okay, the playing field was much bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but so he flew to Meadowbrook before us, but then Keith and I. So Keith was probably the second, and I was the third.
Yeah, but one of the first students because Mr. Bogo wasn't really related to
Right,
school.
right, right. We were the first and second students, yes.
So both
And
of you landed it on the netball court?
on the netball court, yes.
But that has some feet, Vivian. Oh, no man should do that because that's, as far as I remember, that's not a big area.
No, well, you know, it was a military helicopter where we were military pilots, you know. So what we call it, yes, was not a problem for us, you know.
I hear you.
Yes,
I hear you.
that was a very interesting article about my visit was once written in one of the school magazines. You know, I don't know if you ever read it. It's very humorous.
What year school magazine, Vivian? Because I have a couple of them, you know. Which year school magazine?
Right. I have to find out and tell you, Lance. I can't remember offhand.
Okay. I have to look it up and see. Because I have a couple of school magazines. I will send them to
Yes.
you. You can look and see. I have them online. I will send them to the ones that I have. So, yeah.
Okay,
I
yes.
didn't know that, Vivian. I didn't know that at all. Well, I wasn't there on campus at the time when Keith came. I always missed them fireworks there. Dougie,
Yes.
or Chris, you were ever there when the helicopter landed?
No, never.
No, we
never.
just heard that it landed. I didn't witness it, but it must have been an amazing feat for the school, and it attests to the greatness and the caliber of Vivian that's in our presence. Just the way how he does things and how he manages to weave that career and land that helicopter on that tricky netball tennis court in between those trees. Remember, there were a lot of trees by Mr. Senior House. So it was, I mean, like I bet the downdraft was just amazing. So that's great. But I didn't get to witness it. But that's great, Vivian.
And Chris,
Okay, we you know, a lot of people from Meadowbrook. There was Neville Arnold also, who was a prefect at the school at one time. He also was an officer in the army. And I don't know if you guys remember Philip Campbell. He was Mrs. Campbell's son. I think he ended up coming to us from Monroe for sixth form.
Yeah.
He also joined the army.
P. Brown.
So we have a few people, you know.
Yeah, P. Brown too. In later years, Paul Brown, I remember it's part of that great tradition to Vivian.
Yes.
I don't know if you know Paul Brown. He was in Trinidad for one time. He's back home now.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. Him and Raj about the same age. Or maybe Raj, I don't know which one older. But Christian, I know which one older.
No, I know which one is slower.
Yeah, would that be P. Brown? Would that be P. Brown?
By far.
Major Brown? No disrespect there. We're just remembering the cricket days, okay? Major Brown, so don't take this anyway.
No, man. Me and him have a race to run over, man. So, Vivian, name some of the students them who you remember when you come in a first form in 72. Some of your classmates them, if you can remember them.
I remember Christine Beecher. I think she's now deceased.
Yeah.
That is correct. Yes. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of our lovely ladies, you know. There was probably not exactly in my class, but Richard Phillips. He's still a friend of mine today because I repeated the fifth form in school, you know. So people who were behind me ended up in sixth form with me in the last 2 years of school, you know.
Yeah.
So I kind of broadened my acquaintances and associations that way, you know.
You spent more years in school, yeah.
There was a time, you know, when I left school, some of my nightmares, I would wake up sometimes and just be frightened and adrenaline filled just upon discovering that I'm not in school, you know. Yeah, it was frightening for me initially. Like for the first 2 years after I left Meadowbrook, I had nightmares about leaving, you know.
Yeah, it was such a protective environment.
Yes, no,
Yes,
the school
yes.
was everything, you know. We learned so much of myself was there, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes.
Well, big
So
up.
yeah, I Raymond Holmes,
That's quoting our younger
well,
brother, the Ray boy,
yeah,
used to call him, yeah.
Milton McCourty.
I remember
Um,
that too.
yeah, he was in school with me. Yeah, lot Derek Gordon. He and I came over from St. Richard's together. Yeah,
What about
man. Lot
Mark De La Pena?
Mark Della Pena, yes. Yes. All of those guys, you know. I mean, the thing about Meadowbrook, you know, by the time I got there, when I arrived at the school, it was very hierarchical because that is how Jamaica was, you know. So seniority was very important. You know, you had your sixth formers, your fifth formers, and there was a huge gulf between the forms. Middle school, lower school, and upper school more or less operated separately. But by the time I left school, I think we have become more unified and more approachable. So I remember, you know, I had associates and friends from many year groups, you know, people like Stevens Samuels, who was probably two classes below me, you know, because Jackie Samuels and I think were contemporaries. So so Stevenson would have been below, but I still spoke to him. Christopher Senior, all of these men I just remember as my friends. You know, Douglas there. You know,
Yeah.
all of us. We all moved as one. You know.
Yeah, yeah. It became the hierarchy was kind of disappearing by the time you left Meadowbrook. Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's why sometimes I have difficulty remembering who was exactly with me because once we were at school together, out in the yard together, we were one. You know.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And the cadet corps was also a big draw for that.
Right.
Integrating all the because you'd have younger members, senior from the
Yeah.
different levels of the school.
So
Camp
yep.
and so.
Let me ask you a question, Vivian. As Dougie mentioned cadet corps, did you have ambitions to become a cadet, or it just because of Meadowbrook you were drawn to the cadet?
Yeah, I was just drawn to cadets because of Meadowbrook. I was never in the scouts. I was never in anything like that before. But when I got there, you know, we had some very impressive people, as I said, Bert Samuels and all of these people, you know, whenever there was inspection, the entire school supported it. When the inspection was going on, the whole school was outside in the yard watching what was happening. So it was very inclusive, you know, and this way people became interested. And then back in those days now, we used to keep our guns at school, you know. The armory was in one of those little rooms on the three-story block, right on the landing, the staircase landing. You had some little offices, you know. So the cadet unit had 30 guns there, what we call our
Wow.
rifles. So on a Friday afternoon, the fellows would take out their guns and would be there cleaning their guns and practicing with it, you know. So these things made an impression on an impressionable second or first former, you know.
But those were disabled guns, right, Vivian? Those were not real guns. They were disabled, right?
There were real guns, but disabled. The firing pins and other mechanisms were
Right,
removed.
right,
Yeah.
right. Absolutely.
But that would have impressed you, facing them gun there and all them thing there.
Right.
So when the two-story block was built, no, that's the block behind the three-story block. That was built for the expansion of the school in the 1970s. You know, that's when that was in my time. What had happened now, the government was trying to expand the school plant. You know, they in addition to new schools, the old schools were being expanded. So Meadowbrook got a grant and that new block was put up. So in that block, you had a lab and you had an armory for the cadets. We had a proper strong room there now to store the guns in. But then as the crime situation became more dire, even that was not safe enough. So the guns had to be removed from the school and taken to Up Park Camp to the armory there for storage.
I was just going to
And
ask you
then
about that, when that did change. I was just going to ask you about that, Vivian, because I'm saying that
yeah,
must have
that
been.
was it in the 1970s, like about 73, 74. So we had to discontinue keeping the guns at school because it became too dangerous, you know.
Yeah.
island-wide, not only
No, it was
in
just a
Meadowbrook.
Meadowbrook thing alone, or corporate area, I think. Island
But
wide.
that's
As you said, the
by the
culture was beginning to change.
yeah,
We were in
things
the
were a
middle of
bit
a transformation. We were in the middle of a transformation, Vivian. It's like,
yeah, yeah.
and
When I look back at my time at Meadowbrook, I think we were always in some sort of transformation, you know.
yeah.
We transitioned to free places in 58. By the time I got there now for 73, that's when free education was announced completely.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody entering the school now sat the common entrance at that time, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that changed that again the volume of people coming in, and it made it more diverse, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
the school population became more diverse at that time, and what that did for us was to give us people who were interested in different things from different areas. So we had like a greater pool of talent coming into the school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, we were still not winning anything. We participated, you know, but I don't think we were large enough and diverse enough yet to attract the type of coaching and the type of people that wanted to come and help us to win, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, most people who coach sports at Meadowbrook were like you know, sometimes you have old boys coming in to help
Yeah.
with different aspects, you know, with cricket, with football, you know, it was a lot of the ex people, Sledgy and all of these
Yeah.
people who attended school,
Heard
they
that.
they they came and assisted with sports, but we didn't have the sort of school population that would attract, you know, ambitious top flight coaches, you know,
Yeah,
to
yeah. Mm.
come to us. So that what happened now, the school was slowly expanding. But when we went to the two-shift system now and doubled up the population of the school, that is when we really started to gain traction, you know.
Mm-hmm. So that, that,
And
that, that happened during while you were there, Vivian, because you say you started the school was like the population was
yeah,
200 and something. And by the time you leave,
yes.
what was the population size?
Oh, it was over 1,000 people, man. Because you know, the first expansion that took place, as I said, had to do more with like academic expansion. So we had the two-story block being built, but then it was noticed, you know, that people were leaving school um, in the fifth form sometimes without a skill and without being able to access further tertiary education. So the ministry took a decision to again make Meadowbrook a pilot with woodwork and metal work. So those new buildings to the front now, where the headmaster's offices and the staff room, plus the two buildings to the left, they were actually a metal work shop with lathe and all of those things, and a woodwork shop. And this was to broaden the curriculum of the school, offer more diversity to the students, so that upon graduation they had more options.
And
So that was all.
Meadowbrook was a pilot program for that.
Yes, man. That's what I tell you. That school is a cutting edge school, you
I
know.
didn't know
It
that at all.
all the new things in education that the ministry wanted to implement. Meadowbrook was one of the schools chosen.
Meadowbrook was a guinea pig.
Yeah,
Yes, well,
it was great. It was a
Yeah,
good
no,
guinea
it
pig
was good
test.
for us. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not saying under derogatory. It was good for us because all the new
yeah.
experiment that come straight to Meadowbrook. I didn't know that, Vivian. They are giving some wonderful information. I did not know that at all.
yeah, man. So that's the second phase of expansion now. So the first phase was expanding to the two-story block. Then a few years went on, and then we broadened the curriculum of the school now to include woodwork and metal work, which was not one of our traditional subjects coming from the founding, you know.
Yeah,
So
non-academic subjects. Yeah, yeah.
the school offered the students that option, you know, as well. So this is how Meadowbrook continued to expand. One thing you will learn about Meadowbrook, you know, and people who are there will tell you this. Now, nobody at Meadowbrook has ever been caned for or punished for putting out a petition, or for boycotting the canteen if prices go up. Um, all of these things are encouraged and managed by the staff. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, man, we
Yeah.
can hear Vivian.
Yes.
Talk about
Yeah.
that. Expand on that. How you know about
Yeah.
that? How you know said this managed by the staff? Talk about, because initially in the introduction you say you're a member of the school board. Talk about
Right.
how that
So
transition took place, because it's an important discussion this. Talk about
right.
how you got introduced to that and all information behind the scenes.
Right. So the government decided that in the 70s that for the democratization of schools, the school board must have a broad-based representation, and that students are to be represented, to assist in taking the decisions that are going to affect them. So based on that ministry directive, an election was held at Meadowbrook, and the students elected me as their representative to the school board.
And what year was this, Vivian? And what farm were you in?
Well, I think I may have been in lower six at the time, That must
Okay,
have been
okay.
like 78, 79. So,
Mm-hmm.
So as I told you, my father and so, he paid attention to the school. Any word that came out the mouth of the Reverend Ward, and so I had to understand very clearly and be able to, to know what the school is about and what is my mission there, So with this attitude, both Mr. Thorpe and Miss McLennan knew that I was a man who took the school and its history as a Meadowbrookian very seriously. So much so that when I left school, Miss McLennan offered me a job, to teach geography at school. But I had already applied to join the army, and before I could start teaching, the JDF called. But as she herself said, and I heard somebody else repeat on the program that other people have come to Meadowbrook from elsewhere, and there will always be JC girls or Queen's College girls or what. But we are Meadowbrookians, and we are Meadowbrook High School, So we are what the school is about. We are the ones who form the school and its reputation. So if we can contribute to it by teaching there and helping out, with the development of the school, then that suited her.
Yeah.
And in those, what you had was you had a sort of on-the-job training for teachers that was run by the ministry, where you did like about 3 years at the school, and then you would have been given a scholarship to go to teachers college,
So Meadowbrook was on the cutting edge at all of these things, and Vivian, that everything at all. That's why so many young teachers were at Meadowbrook at the time.
Yes, because they were on the pupil, they were on the training there, based on that ministry program in order to move on to teachers college. Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead. You go ahead, Vivian. Sorry, don't let me stop your train of thought. You go ahead.
Meadowbrook was always one of these pioneering schools, from its founding right up, And then we always were a cohesive school, even when we were not very good at sports initially, because as I said, we didn't have the diversity. We were a small student body. We have a school of 400, 500 people, of which half are girls, 250 boys. Some people don't have the talent. Some are concentrating on their studies. You can hardly, you don't have the volume to probably,
competitive team. No,
yeah,
that's not right.
Competitive team. And as a result, we were not attracting coaches,
Yeah.
But when the shift system started, that changed, and it is at this point now that I must touch on Howard now,
Yeah.
So you back in those days now, one of the easiest things that we could manage was track and field, because the track and field didn't require any real coaching, it's not a team sport. What you had were individual persons who were interested in track and more or less trained themselves, So you had at the time Donna Mayer, Stally. He was like our main athlete, He won a bronze medal at champs in some event. I can't remember which one it was.
800 meter, and then he went on to win the gold medal at Carifta. Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
So he was Howard's friend and mentor, And both of them used to train together, Stanley took him under his wing, almost like a brother, every evening they would train, carry the shots and run down to Queen Hill and down to Bottom Field and do their own training. And then the real motivator now for people in those days, the hero at the time was Don Quarry, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So Don Quarry provided the sort of motivation that Usain Bolt would have provided in today's Jamaica, you know,
Mm-hmm.
where he sort of put track and field on the map and everybody wanted to run like him, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
So
man. The Olympics of the 200 meter in Montreal, 76. Yes.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
So he was Howard's main inspiration also to be able to run the 100 and the 200 meters. You know?
Hold on, Vivian. Hold the thought there a second. Were you aware that it was Stedman who coached Sally?
No, I was not aware of this.
Yeah, man. When Stedman was on the program, he talked about that. Mr. Top called him and asked him to come help coach Sally. And Stedman was saying, boy, Sally was such an easy person for coach and motivated.
Right.
But if he want to come out, you hear the conversation. But continue. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
Thanks for that, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
but
man.
this is this.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is the sort of environment that you have at Meadowbrook. You know, you remember I told you now that back in those days, it's old students we used to call in to help with. You know, so guys like Stedman would have come back, coach Stally, and Stally and coach other people, but it's more the self-help we are into, you know.
Yeah, because
from
track and field, as I say, is an individual sport, it's not a team thing.
Right.
Either for coach. Yeah.
Yeah, we did our own self. So we yes.
Yeah,
So-
go ahead, Chris.
And when Howard won that gold medal at Boys Champs in 78, it was basically self-training, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that. That makes it even more special.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I just remember sitting down in the bleachers behind the starting blocks.
Yes.
And the favorite was Earl Lang from St. George's College.
Yeah,
and
at the time. Yeah.
right, Howard got a bullet start and it was over.
Yes.
You know, I just remember him putting up his hand, raising his hand, and he hit the tape. And I said, boy, you know, first gold medal I've seen anyone from Meadowbrook win. And it was really special.
Well, I don't think we have won a gold medal since that. But anyway, go ahead, Vivian. Sorry. We can't stand corrected. Go ahead.
Howard went to St. Richard's as well, you know.
So hold on, Vivian, before we go further. So did Howard choose Meadowbrook or him never have a choice?
No, he chose Meadowbrook also. He chose Meadowbrook and Calabar for his choices, hoping to come to Meadowbrook.
Okay, see like me, that's why I come to Meadowbrook too. I love
Yeah,
Meadowbrook.
he doesn't want to come to Meadowbrook because that was the school I was going to, and you know, the reputation of the school was high in their home, you know.
Yeah.
So he didn't get through with his common entrance. So I went to Mr. Thorpe now to ask, you know, if there's any possibility if he could take him.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Thorpe said, well, he would be glad to have him, you know, in the school because, you know, he wouldn't mind having two people from the same background as myself, you know, at the time.
Hold on, Vivian, you said something important. You said you went to Mr. Thorpe, not your father?
No, man, I went to Mr. Thorpe, you know.
So you have a school and you go to Mr. Thorpe for your brother?
I went to Mr. Thorpe and had a word with him, man, because you see, the school was, you know, we were approachable, you know, once you were disciplined and for the school, between the staff, the students, we were one, you know, Meadowbrook is a family school, you know.
Yeah.
So,
continue, don't make me break a train of thought. Just if I hear something, I need clarification. I feel ask you the question, but go ahead, sorry.
So Mr. Thorpe said he would have been glad to have him, man, and so Howard came to Meadowbrook. Now, my father at the time, you know, he was of the generation of people who did not believe that sports can be your main focus. You know, he thought that sports is an extracurricular activity, and that, you know, you must get your lessons and deal with sports as a secondary issue, you know.
Yeah.
So
Sound like my father. That sound like my father.
yes, all fathers at that time, they called track and field running, you know.
It's all right.
That running is that thing that can put you anywhere, you know. You need to concentrate on your work.
Lessons. Yes, your lessons are what I call it, Vivian. Yeah.
So Vivian.
Yes.
Vivian, three things I will always remember about Howard: his love of aeroplanes,
Yes.
politics, and sports.
Yes.
I never did get to know Howard outside of Meadowbrook. What was he like? Share some memories of Howard outside of the school.
Well, he was a very shy guy, you know.
Yeah.
He didn't like to promote himself, you know.
Yes.
And he always had a smile on his face. He was always approachable. And he was a fellow that always liked to help other people, you know. If he could coach you to run faster than him, he would, you know.
Okay.
That is the type of person that he was, you know. And he was very loyal to the school, you know. Herb McKinley came to him and offered him a scholarship to Calabar. And, you know, he declined and said and this was when they were being self-coached at Meadowbrook still. And Herb was a big-time Olympian and coach. And he declined, you know, because Meadowbrook is where is what gave him his start and where he facilitated him when he needed help, and he was loyal.
Yeah, I'm loyal to Meadowbrook. Yeah.
And interestingly, Earl Lang actually, who he beat in that 100-meter race, transferred from St. George's straight to Calabar.
Calabar, yeah.
Yes.
And before you continue, Vivian, what was the age difference between you and Howard?
5 years.
5 years, okay. So he came when you were in sixth form?
Yes, yeah. Fifth form, sixth form, thereabouts.
Yeah.
So, Vivian, question.
Yeah.
I remember getting a hold of that magazine, Take a Peep into Meadowbrook. Was published in 76, and I saw we had the nickname New Gent. I heard a story how you got it, but I prefer to hear from you. How did you get that name?
I was very naive, you know. Now, you're at a school with 400 people. Everybody know each other, you know. The prefect comes up, and I think it was Owen Oliver or Neville, and one of them, I can't even remember. And wanted to give me a detention for something which I'm sure was well-deserved, you know. And he asked, what's my name? So I thought I would give him an alias, a false name, you know, to get out of the punishment, and he would never see me or find me again. So I told him Nigel Nugent, which he wrote down. And then, you know, subsequently, in quick order, he realized that there was no such person in the school. So whereas I would have gotten perhaps a 2 days or a 1 day detention, I ended up with a week. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, so that was it. And at the time, that was considered, you know, for a little second form or so to tell a fifth form prefect that's a really egregious offense, you know?
Yeah.
So Vivian served the detention for Nugent for the week.
Yes.
That's pretty good. That's a good swap.
Yeah.
Yes, man.
So let me ask you something about Howard, though, Vivian, because were you surprised that Howard turned out to be such a... Two questions, and in a sense. Howard turned out to be such a first-class athlete in a class 3. And the big surprise to me is why he never transitioned into a top-class runner.
Well, the thing about it, you know, as I said, in the home, he was not encouraged to pursue athletics as a career. And he also loved aeroplanes a lot, you know.
Okay.
And he had an opportunity to go to the United States, to the LaGuardia School of Aeronautics in Queens, to go and study aeronautical engineering, you know. So that was really his passion, you know.
Focusing on that, and not him running at all.
No, and it wasn't encouraged, you know. You know, there is nothing like winning, you know. You know, I think if it was nowadays with Bolt and, you know, the sports programs being what they are, and, you know, the ability to transition probably at UTech or UWI into running, he would have probably stuck with it, you know. But it was not, things were not as developed as they are now. Back in those days, when you had any talent, you had to try and get a scholarship, a track scholarship to go overseas. And when you went overseas, you heard horror stories, you know, of coaches training children and they're graduating without, well, they're leaving school without any qualifications and all kinds of things, you know. And Howard was considered by my parents now to be a fairly young fellow. and they didn't want to send him away to be taken advantage of. They didn't. So they didn't encourage it.
Well, John Mayer, who was contemporary in age and running, have been through that program and talk about horror stories where him go overseas. So film conversation, if you go back and listen to him talk about exactly what you talk about. So your parents did save Howard from a horror story there. I agree with that.
Yes, he's great and that sort of thing. But I'll tell you something, my proudest day at Meadowbrook, which will always, live in my memory, was that day after Howard won, because it was 2 medals, it was 2 gold medals, both in the 100 and in the 200 meters,
He won 200 as well?
Yes.
I didn't even remember that. I did not even remember that at all. But go ahead, yeah.
This is what, as I said, Don Quarry was his hero. So, here people say he ran the bend like Don Quarry, But he ended up winning the 100 and the 200 meters class 3 medal, 2 gold medals, the school's first gold medal in international, in schoolboy competition.
Champs, yeah.
So the next morning now, the whole school knew about it and was at the stadium. The assembly hall was packed, Everybody was there. And Miss McLennan, at the time, who was the headmistress, had him off in the wings, where the toilets are on the left. Where you come
in the assembly hall, yeah.
Yeah, he's in that area, And the school is there waiting expectantly, And he has it, she puts the 2 medals on him around his neck, And then comes from the side there, holding his hand. He's holding his hands by his side. And Miss McLennan then carries him to the center of the assembly hall and lifts his hand,
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you something. The noise, the trembling, the sound of the assembly hall. I've never seen Meadowbrook so energized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I think that is when people at the school knew that we could do anything.
Start believing.
Yes. That is the start of our full self-confidence, and it coincided now, as I said, with the expansion of the school, with more people coming in, with the double shift system, and then we were able to pick up in other areas,
Yeah, that was great.
I know about them,
I never remember saying 100 and 200, but Howard and I were good friends, Vivian. Also, like, him with a little younger than me, but we used to have a whole heap of political debates. Because
yes, that much I remember.
You remember those debates, Chris? Yeah. Howard could have hold more than hold his own when me and him attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So me and him was a good friend, man. Good friend all the way through school, man. I just say, we have to big him up. I'm not here. And I say, for the first man to win, not 1, but 2 gold medals for Meadowbrook, I can tell you, I think at the last time Meadowbrook came in at the top 10 in the champs, if I remember right, Vivian.
Yes, no, man. It was a significant achievement for the school and a culmination of years of effort on behalf of many people,
Yeah. I didn't know that at all. I just say whenever I have a coaching program there, if you encourage him, I'm not getting encouraging at the house, so I can't see why it just taper off. Because if you not get encouragement, you don't see it. Because not like no, it's a track and field. You can't get a scholarship, you can't get endorsement, you can't get money. It's a different time than 40 years ago we are talking about, Vivian. 45, long time.
It was all individual self-help effort, Cooperation among the students, let's put it that way, because that's what Meadowbrook is about. It's staff and all the guys who probably didn't win a medal, who were in the track team, training, and
It would have motivated all the rest of people, without a doubt. So you never answered the first question. Were you surprised that he won those 2 gold medals?
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I was surprised at how good an athlete he was, to tell you the truth. I never saw any indication of it at St. Richard's, but I think it's the environment of Meadowbrook that allowed him to blossom, And that's the great thing about the school, Everybody excelled in their own area, because I was not a sportsman, but I was excelling at the school and thriving just like him.
Yeah. In your own area, yes, definitely. Yeah.
that is the brilliant thing about the school and the staff there, where people at Meadowbrook, the school allows you to be your best,
Yeah, man. Well, the motto say it in Vivian. Let your light so shine. Never say let somebody else light in. Let your light shine. So everybody can shine, in their own way.
Of course. Of course. Of course. As I was saying earlier, that at Meadowbrook, we were encouraged, when prices went up in the canteen, we organized boycotts of the canteen, issue out leaflets and went and tell the concessionaires there that, patties have gone up by 5 cents or 10 cents, so we are not going to buy. And,
I remember that at Meadowbrook, that boycott. It was something.
And we have done that, and we have had students who have blown up things in the lab, and Mr. Thorpe planned to suspend or expel them, and we would write a petition, their classmates, explaining what has happened and going to advocate on their behalf, and he would change his mind, And this is what Meadowbrook was about. Nobody ever got punished or called in for acts like that. That is encouraged in the school,
And this was part of the fact that Meadowbrook was the experimental school with these things.
What were they doing with those explosions? Yeah, what were they doing with those explosions?
The chemicals in the school, boys with the your boy.
What's wrong with the doggy? Say nobody knows a stink bomb at school, doggy.
Well, I know some of the chemicals, like you put sodium in water and that's a fire, right?
Well, I know I heard of a certain student who actually did that. Put a piece of sodium in an orange juice box that had water.
Oh yeah,
that's shook it up and it blew it up. It blew up.
Oh yeah.
Well, these are the type of things that they will want to discourage, But the school, everybody was approachable. Our teachers, everybody, the ancillary staff, Mr. and Mrs. Senior,
Yes, I remember them.
Yes. Reds, Mr. Riley, all of these people you could approach, and they took an interest in the students, and this was the nature of the school.
So let me ask a question, Vivian. Without that lenient policy so this was a directive from the Ministry of Education.
And the founders,
Mr. Ward and the rest of founders, them said this is the type of school they want at Meadowbrook. It's almost like an experiment to see if you can have like a student participation in the building a school.
Yes, it's about citizenship. That is what they were about, Yeah, citizenship for independent Jamaica.
It was preparing Meadowbrook people then for come out in a wider society for take on the role for say it's a new society of
Yes. It broke down all the barriers, As I said, the school came about just when we were abolishing the paying system to enter high school. And it was structured, to take in people from a wider base, and from different backgrounds and build them up,
I did not.
And the Meadowbrook students around the world, distinguishes themselves with in certain ways, Now we might not be famous, a lot of people are prime ministers and ministers of government and so, but a lot of Meadowbrookians have become, civil servants, lawyers, chief people at the hospital, I can think of that. Yeah, my own classmate there, Lisa Lou, she became like the chief radiologist at the UWI for many years. Quietly, Raymond noticed.
Jennifer and Minerva Tim.
Yes.
Yeah. They're very prominent at UWI in terms of the department and running in charge. Yes.
And Minerva is the dean. She's the dean of medicine.
Right. Raymond Notice. You guys remember Notice?
Yeah, man. Yes.
Yeah,
man. Yeah.
He was the medical officer for Spanish Town. He was the officer who looked after prisoners at the St. Catherine District Prison, and he was the mayor of Spanish Town.
Yes. Yep.
So this is how Meadowbrook people have gone on to distinguish themselves in different areas quietly. Up in my area here, we have a lady by the name of Keisha Hale. I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but we had a primary school up here that was failing. The ministry wanted to close it down, and she came up here as the headmistress and turn around the school, that it is getting, some percentage-wise, some top passes now in CXC.
And that's up in a way, live Vivian, up at Coopersville, Sterling, Cassie area.
Of course, she was in the Gleaner and all of that, and I've gone away to lecture to different places on how she managed to do it. But it's about perseverance, It's so many people are living out the school motto,
Yeah. So let me ask you something, Vivian. As a member, the first student who was part of the school board, what was it like to go at the first school board meeting as a schoolboy? Because sit down with those school board.
Most of the time when the board members were discussing financial matters and subventions from the ministry, and when the school is behind in getting monies, and so all of that was over my head, One of my most memorable meetings, school board meetings, a board meeting was convened to discipline a teacher. I don't know what the teacher did, but Mr. Thorpe and the staff there, they were having a meeting about some disciplinary matter. But I heard about it, but I wasn't invited. So I turned up upstairs there at his office with my little book, little exercise book and pencil, and everybody has filed into the meeting, and he looked at me, at the door, and said to me, Mr. Thomas, I think you had better sit out this one, and just closed the door and went on about his business, So I was.
So the exercise book was empty. Yeah, there was nothing for the exercise book.
Yeah, you imagine confidential business being discussed with a staff member, and you've got a student there. By the end of the week, everybody.
You're going there for 10 minutes. You're going there to take minutes, right, Vivian?
Yeah, so he had to get rid of me, And then, so I went home and told my father what happened, that I wasn't able to exercise my mandate from the ministry, And he was in agreement with Mr. Thorpe, more or less, That what he sent me there for was to mind my lessons,
It's just funny how so many of the parents in that time just have that mindset. How did they take when Howard won? Were they more accepting of his running, or they were just, because the parents of that time just seem very tunnel vision in how they think? Most of the parents.
Yes. That didn't change them, because as a matter of fact, what we used to be reminded of is that Norman Manley was an athlete, but he took his lessons seriously. And that's how
So Norman Manley wasn't standard bearer then. I said, okay, you can run all you want running, but guess what? Norman Manley was QC,
yeah. Wow. That's what you want. You can't be like Norman Manley, run, but make sure that you're a road scholar and an athlete.
Exactly.
Yeah, the parents were tunnel vision for sure.
Hard barrier them to climb, Vivian, without a doubt.
So Vivian, on the question of teachers, who are some of the teachers who influenced you the most? And if you could spend some time on Mr. Gooden and Mr. Thorpe.
Right.
Mr. Chin from Cadet, Mr. Chin.
Yes. So Mr. Chin, he did not teach me in school, but he was the head of the cadets.
Yeah.
So we have to work with him. Now, from a student's perspective, you look at these teachers and you there's a distance, of course, between students and teachers, and you revere them. You can consider some of them to be severe, at times unapproachable. That is our attitude of them. But when you go back to the school as an adult, as I have been privileged to do, like as I said, for those career day talks, visiting the cadet unit there over the years to still, provide inspiration and speak to the fellows, and you see the staff in action with that generation of students, then you realize how skillful they were, that they were actually very compassionate people. They understood children. They knew how to motivate. They had the right words to build the children's self-esteem. And they also had the demeanor and disposition to encourage discipline. So when I look back on them as adults, as an adult from the perspective of an adult, I even came to appreciate them more than when I was there as a student.
Yeah.
One day when I flew there with that helicopter, as we were about to leave, there was a boy. He must have been in about third form, running up and down, so he was quite disheveled, his uniform out of his pants and sweaty and so Miss McLennan standing in her pantsuit, both of us were beside each other in our bell-bottom pantsuit, and I am there with her.
Yeah.
Called him over, come here, what is your name, So the fellow said what his name was. She said, look at you, put your shirt in your pants. Do you see Captain Thomas here? He was once a young man like you running around on the square, and look at him today, how tidy he is and how he has, maintained himself. Don't you want to be like that also, And the little boy is tucking in his pants, and behaving himself and moving on. And I just saw in it, a certain humor, a certain compassion, and just an almost motherly caring for the students around. Now, that little boy didn't feel that way. But as a person looking on at the interaction, I could see that clearly. So I think that is how the teachers at Meadowbrook were, I listened to this podcast, and I heard when Chana was speaking about one of the ladies there, the English teacher that looked after him when his mother was away in the States, Miss Laidlaw, Yes. Those are the teachers I remember at Meadowbrook, Mrs. Millwood, Mrs. Gooden. They were the same,
Yeah.
And of course, Mr. Gooden also was the head of the cadets and a very approachable man. He was a math teacher. He had certain old-fashioned views anyway that may have caused, some of the girls in particular not to appreciate him very, very much. He felt that because men had to earn a living and provide for their family, they needed to take mathematics seriously. The girls didn't have to, because they were going to be wives and mothers,
Yeah. So like exactly what Mr. Gooden has said for true, Vivian.
Yeah.
That is true. Yes.
That sort of thing may have been popular in the 50s, but by the time it came around to the 1970s, it wasn't always appropriate. But he was effective. He did his best, and many girls got 1s and 2s in mathematics from him.
Yeah. He was a good teacher. He had the concept down pat. He could have do it in his sleep. That's how good he was.
Yes.
But I heard him telling young ladies that their lips looked like they were eating chicken, and it was a underhanded way of saying, what are you wearing lip gloss for? And I do remember him looking out for certain of the young men who were in the cadets, and he was always wanting to say, you need to pay attention to the maths. You know what he told me? Don't look on the donut. Don't look on the hole on the donut. Look on the donut when you're trying to solve a math problem. And I take that, from that time, I took that with me. No, don't look on the problem. Look on the donut. Don't look on the hole in the donut.
Right.
So Mr. Gooden was different. Yep.
Yes, he was an outstanding teacher and a very loyal person to Meadowbrook as well, Dr. Murray. So many people,
Yes. Rattigan mentioned Mrs. Millwood, how she cared for him. Remember, Jelly?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
she was a nice
man. Now, my father, for many years, operated a shoe store,
Yeah, I remember
and
that
Mr.
I was selling some of that today, right on Mullines Road and Walton Park.
Yeah. Mr. Good many times would come to him, unbeknownst to me, to ask us for shoes, for children who in the school who he wished to donate the shoes to.
Wow.
And I did not know that, but this is to show you, the level to which the teachers go. He had enough shoes which he would give to persons who he thought needed it.
That was something special about Meadowbrook for true, because Oral Shaw had been on this program, and him saying he used to get lunch, and nobody knew that he used to get lunch. Meadowbrook provided for the students who needed it, Vivian, and nobody knew at all. That's a class of Meadowbrook had.
Yes.
invisible nurturing. They will nurture you and nobody knows. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And you see, I have spoken to many people who have attended Meadowbrook, and again, one of the unique things, well, not unique, but one of the things I have found is that persons who are from a disadvantaged background always say that Meadowbrook lifted them up. They benefited from being there. You have never heard anybody say that students were dragged down at Meadowbrook. Persons who ought to have known better have done worse. No, it's always the reverse. Anybody who comes to Meadowbrook, just that environment is a motivation to lift them up.
Without a doubt.
And that is something unique about the school.
Well, I hope they can remember that and get that entrenched in them now, because what was in the social media recently was very sad to see from Meadowbrook.
Yeah, and that's not a problem synonymous with Meadowbrook alone. So, but yeah.
Yes, yeah,
That
absolutely.
is true.
But
It's like as Vivian said, it's a transitional period back in the 70s. I think the society
Yeah.
go through a transitional period now, and we don't know what going to end up at all. And Meadowbrook has
yes,
like
it's
all school.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's throughout the society.
Yeah. But let me ask you something, Vivian, because you talk about the student participation in making sure. I don't know if you were at school, maybe not, but I remember one time they wanted to lock out Pekka
Yes.
outside the school. And
Yes.
we had to literally, just like you're talking about, boycott the canteen, almost like a prevent you from going to the canteen and say, Pekka not coming in. Nobody now buying a lunch at the canteen. Were you aware of that? Were you at school at the time?
No, I was not there at the time, but I heard about it. But this does not surprise me, because this is what I'm telling you about the
Tradition,
people at
right?
Meadowbrook.
Right.
This is how the school, this is what the school was founded on. This is the type of activist and the type of person that the founders wanted to create. I don't know if you remember when Mr. Bogle told us in his interview that the Reverend Ward explained to him the type of student that he wishes to cultivate at the school and the environment, the tone he wishes to set.
No, it is an amazing thing. I think about it. And then I had this conversation after me and him talk all the while, and him said to me, say, boy, Jelly, say, Meadowbrook allow, Vivian, I confirm what him said to me now. He said, Meadowbrook allow that participation where, because what we did with Pekka, it couldn't do at another school,
No. There are very few other schools in Jamaica. Listen, my sister, went to a well-known girls' school in the Constant Spring area, right? They up there, are children. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
You enter that school as a child and you leave as an older child. That is what I can see.
Yeah.
When we were here, the things we were doing at Meadowbrook, the things we were interested in. I go back to the Key Club. When the Key Club was founded, we of course were sponsored by the Kiwanis Club of downtown Kingston, and we would go to their meetings, to learn parliamentary procedure and to learn how to speak and how to conduct ourselves. We benefited immensely from that. So we were a part of the Eastern Canada and the Caribbean region, and we decided, that we were going to put up Paul Roden for the post of international trustee. That is to head the Eastern Canada and Caribbean region of Key Club International. So his election was to be conducted in Miami, at the Fontainebleau Hotel. That's a very famous hotel on Miami Beach at the time. And we raised funds, car washes, cake sales, various things to purchase the tickets for the club members to attend. And we went to Miami with a delegation of probably like about 12 to 15 people. And we ran a campaign up there on Paul's behalf that saw him winning. So Paul had to leave school. Like sometimes when we were at school, he took time off. Mr. Thorpe gave him time off to travel to Canada to visit the eastern provinces up there to discharge his duty as an international trustee for about 2 years. So
Wow.
these are the activities that we engaged in as schoolboys. When I was at school through the cadets, I had my pilot's license in the fifth form, you know, from being able to do the air cadet program. So
Wow. I
Meadowbrook,
didn't know that. That's great. That's great. I didn't know that.
at Meadowbrook, there are so many things, you know, that a person can engage in, you know, and to better themselves. Half the things that students learn at that school are not curriculum items. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah,
it,
because
it, it,
a student that's, I do come out just talking about our association with the student at the blind on Manninghill Road. Meadowbrook was one of the first school who, I know you're talking, Vivian, I realize why. Meadowbrook
yeah,
always leading the experiment
yeah,
in terms of educational experiment. Yes, yes,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yes. Yeah,
And
it was famous for that also, you know, that thing of having the first blind student. I remember that something like that being yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
being
I know you're thinking, and all I can say now, all of us here can attest to this, you know. It was a privilege for us to be at Meadowbrook, you know. We were lucky to be at
yeah,
Meadowbrook at the time, you know.
yes,
We were,
yes,
I don't know what it is like, no, in terms of say, but it must have some other traditions, Vivian. But I thought it was by
and
accident, but what you're saying, it was by design, by the
Yeah.
and
founders.
this
Yeah.
It was by
this is
design
why
and plan.
I want to thank your Lance for the opportunity to place these things on record.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah,
why I'm grateful to be on the program
yeah, yeah,
And
because I
that's
want
why you hear me say that it is a legacy for posterity for the Meadowbrook family and for the world at large. So, Jelly, you are
yeah,
doing something great here.
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Thank God, thank God. I didn't know that, Vivian. You're telling me something is an education for me tonight. Listening to you, I talk about is a privilege then we had
Yes.
when we
Yes.
went to Meadowbrook in the 1970s. It was, I just said, the
Yes.
Yes,
founders designed the school away there, and the Ministry of
yes.
Education had to comply or facilitated the cutting edge thing when Meadowbrook allowed.
It was in keeping with what the ministry wanted, and but Meadowbrook was able to implement, you know. And
Yeah.
we had great teachers who understood the vision of the founders, you know.
So,
Even when I was at Meadowbrook, I still on a couple of occasions I can remember even the Reverend Maggie, you know, visiting the school. He was one of our deputy headmasters of the school, you know.
in the
But
early days, yeah.
eh, in the early days,
Yeah.
he was the one who determined the motto and the school's crest, you know.
Yeah.
So you know these men would address the school sometime, and you would see them there. Miss McLennan would introduce them, you know, and they were motivational individuals, you know. The Reverend Saunders would come sometimes to speak to us. The founders, you know, they always had an interest in what was happening in the school. And Miss McLennan and Mr. Thorpe and subsequently Dr. Morris, they understood what the mandate of the founders were, you know, and ran the school to realize those initiatives.
It's almost like there was an implicit deal for say Meadowbrook could create not not road scholars or a sports person, but great citizens for Jamaica,
Yes,
for
yes,
independent Jamaica. Meadowbrook would be the model for the citizens of
that is,
independent
that
Jamaica.
is, that's the raison d'etre of Meadowbrook High School. That's what the school was founded to do.
For create citizens for the new independent
Yes.
Jamaica. Yeah,
How
that
did
was.
you see the expatriate teachers? Because there were a lot of expatriate teachers when I was there. How did you see them fitting into that
What,
model for
what
Meadowbrook?
in the 1970s so as to expand the education, the teaching in the school, because of the way in which the student population was expanding. The Ministry of Education took a decision to bring in expatriate teachers into Jamaica to teach mainly science and mathematics, mainly, but other subjects as well. And Meadowbrook, being one of the leading sort of pioneering schools in these projects, got some of those expatriate teachers. So I don't know if you guys were watching the news recently when that gentleman who was leading the British Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, said he was a teacher in Jamaica in the 1970s.
Yes, yes, I
You
saw that.
Yes, yes, yes. I saw it. I'm familiar with that story.
right. So Jeremy Corbyn came in at the same time as people like Mr. Sheraton and Mr. Lawton and all of these men.
Yes,
They came
yes. Wow.
to bolster teaching of science and mathematics in the high schools, and they were distributed to many schools, but Meadowbrook got some.
Yeah.
So that was a program of the ministry.
Wow. Meadowbrook clearly was ahead of the time, although we were there being cultured into that
We were in the middle of
that
the experiment,
mold.
Dougie. We were in the
Yes,
middle of the
exactly.
experiment.
Yeah.
We were in the middle of the melting pot at the time.
The founders of Meadowbrook were highly respected people, you know. You take a man like the Reverend Ward. The Reverend Ward is the first man to found a basic school in Jamaica, you know. He more or less invented the basic school system for infant schools in Jamaica. The first 2 infant schools, he founded them, and then the ministry took it and ran with it.
Okay.
And he sat on the educational board. You see, Jamaica used to have a 2-tier education system, you know, before the 1950s. You used to have in Jamaica two boards that administered education. So one of them looked after primary schools. It was a government board that looked after primary schools and teachers' colleges. And then you had another one now that looked after high schools and prep schools. So that was a private board that people were appointed to, and those schools were run by a school board. The primary schools and were not run by a school board. They were run more or less by a church administrator. Most of them were church schools. So the rector, the priest that is associated with the church that found the school, he more or less would be the man that the headmaster reports to. So with the private school board now for the high schools and prep schools, they hired teachers. They set the pay scale for teachers, which was separate from the government pay scale, and they also set the terms of entry for the school. So high schools used to bring in who they want. You know, you have different entry requirements for different schools, and that was set by the school themselves.
Wow.
What do you mean different entry requirement, Vivian? Expand upon that. Because that
Exclusionary, Jailer. Exclusionary. Selective.
Presbyterians are founded a school, a high school, and they wanted all the staff members to be Presbyterians.
Oh,
Yes.
You know?
I got you. I never follow that mud latter. I got you.
No. But a number of Roman Catholic schools will tell you that, you know, certain positions the Jesuits hold, and they would prefer if Catholics taught certain things in the school, and so they were free to do that back then, you know. Because and you paid you know, they were able to pay people as what they wanted. Now in the 1950s, in 1953, I think they founded the Ministry of Education, and these 2 separate administrations were merged into one and brought under the Ministry of Education to run all schools in Jamaica. So as a prelude now to the scholarships, you remember I told you initially the government gave 2,000 free places.
Yeah.
In order to get that done now, they abolished the individual entrance exams that schools used to have, and then brought in a common entrance exam so that everybody could take that, and then based on that result you could allocate the free places.
Oh, so
but before
that's where the name came from, Vivian. It became a common for everybody.
Right, because before that you used to have individual entrance exam for different schools. If you want to go to PSC, you took an exam. If you want to go to Judges, you took an exam. You want to PSC, that's their one exam.
But that
and then
in the 1950s, it became common. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you failed that entrance exam now, you could still go to the school, because it's about payment. So if your parents could afford to pay to get you in, even though you failed the entrance exam, they could buy a space for you in the school, you call it. So like when I was going to school now, people used to tell me, well, you remember you better study a lesson because remember your father can't buy a space for you.
Hey, that's very true. Yeah.
That is so true.
That's what you meant. So back in those days now, when a person attended high school, that was a qualification in itself. You didn't have to pass anything. If say you wanted like a job in the bank as a teller and you attended Jamaica College, that is enough.
That is enough matriculation, as I would have said. So
Yeah,
you're ready for the job.
matriculation because of what it meant to get in and how you got in. That the fact that you got in spoke volumes about you,
Yeah. I did not know that, Vivian. I did not know that.
Right. So I'm only mentioning this to show you what the Reverend Ward and people who administered education in those times would have faced, why they were so intense about the transformation of Jamaica's education.
They want to transform the Jamaican education system. And Meadowbrook became the experiment.
Because it was elitist and in many instances ineffective. So I only went into that background just that listeners can understand what would have motivated our founders to be the way they are. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Right.
That's what you're saying, Vivian. Meadowbrook was the transformation for education in Jamaica. As simple as you want to take it. Meadowbrook was. Yeah.
And a man like the Reverend Ward, he was big in education because he sat on that board. I think there were like 25 members of people who administered all primary schools and teachers' colleges in Jamaica.
These people like Reverend Ward and Reverend Saunders and persons of those generations who sprung from the peasantry saw education as a means of advancing the society. And the system that they had prior to 1950, it was exclusive and selective, and it kept out the majority of the student population from getting access to a good quality education.
Yes, you are correct.
And they would have saw that and know that with that independent Jamaica that couldn't continue at all.
Exactly.
They saw that.
So
Meadowbrook became they chose, in a sense, Meadowbrook was chosen by them. But by design or accident, I said, boy, this is how we're going. This school going to be.
The pilot
project. That's the word, Dougie. Thank you. The pilot said this is how we're going to create Jamaican citizens who are qualified for an independent country.
You have to break down the barrier, the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
You gentlemen have appreciated it 100%. Yes.
And then at the time now, with the Rastafarian movement, it would have been, and then with Michael Malley coming in power now, it would have been the government would have supported that to 100%. Yeah. Everything just come together. I didn't realize that, Vivian. We were living in the middle of a transformation. But when you're in the middle, sometimes you don't know. And you were fortunate to be part-eyed at a higher level than we, because we just come in and see, say, because you think you can do certain, I never realized if you go to another school, you couldn't do that at all.
Right.
You could not do that, Vivian.
Yeah.
No. But Vivian, I remember you put on, you and your 6th form group, you put on, and you used to rent out Carib for raise money. You remember that?
Yes, man. But this is what I'm saying. These are the initiatives you get up to Meadowbrook. When the school needed something and we had a meeting with the headmaster and he says, well, the school wants cricket gears or whatever. We got about raising money to get it, This is how the school was, we had that initiative. We put on film shows, we put on things and once there's accountability, I remember Mrs. Campbell was the bursar. She used to help us a lot with that, to correlate the monies and make sure that, we pay everybody and so. But that is how we raised our own funds at school with car washes and so, cake sales, lots of activities. I told you, when I left school, I'm telling you, my biggest nightmare is to wake up at home and realize I'm too old and not in school, You're
not part of that wonderful experiment where you literally could have the thing you want. Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, Vivian.
It is an institution second to none, you know. If I had my life to live over again as a high school student, I would not make any different decision.
Without any doubt, Vivian, because Douglas put it best in our earlier conversation. It's like he must say, nobody never want to leave Meadowbrook when school over evening time. It's like
You know.
Douglas said, it's
Oh,
like the last man leave, him no time for close the gate.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
That
Or
is
ride home in Pekka's little three-wheel trike. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. 'Cause someone like Pekka could not have survived at another school.
No, 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 no. That institution I was telling you guys about in Constant Spring, you know, people have to vacate that premises that by 4:30 or 5, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
unless you are engaged in something where you have like probably a note or some sort of license,
Alright.
to be honest.
Yeah, and we could have left
Yeah,
Meadowbrook at all sort of hours.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember at school during the Kung Fu craze, you know. Now, one of the most traumatic days at Meadowbrook that I can recall was when Bruce Lee died, you know. We were at school and news reached us that the dragon had been killed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't believe it, you know. Men burst into tears and all kind of things because Bruce Lee was a hero of schoolboys at the time, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, you know, Bruce Lee was probably the first like non-white superstar of cinema, and that you went to the movies to watch, kick up anybody from Chuck Norris right down,
Yeah,
you
man.
know.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, Bruce Lee was a heroic character, and when news of his death reached us, the school had to adjourn, you know. We got the rest of the afternoon off, you know.
That's the impact it had on the school, yeah.
Yes, yes. So I'm mourned because back then, yeah, karate classes at Meadowbrook, everybody had their gi and their belt and thing, you know. And people, you came into school after and in the vicinity of the library there on the netball court, you could see men doing the various workouts, you know, like in Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, man, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that famous movie, yeah.
Stedman, Gary Stedman. Yeah, yeah, Gary Stedman.
Yeah,
Mad
Yeah,
Cab, yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Bruce Lee was one of three, man. You had Bruce Lee, you had Wang Yu, one
yeah,
swordsman, and you had Chen Sing.
yes, yes,
So, so what about Drunken Master?
That's Jackie
yes.
Chan. He came in the 80s, man.
Okay.
yeah, Chris, I forget to your karate, man. So you don't know all of them to rat. I forget to your So, yeah, Vivian, let me ask you a question now, because this has been wonderful, you know. I don't even have to ask you a question at all. It's a flow. But let me ask you,
Yes.
let me ask them conversation I'm love, man. What's the most embarrassing moment you remember at Meadowbrook that you can look back on with a smile?
All right. Now, back in the old days at Meadowbrook, you used to. This is before the invention of Velcro. All the cricket gears in the school used to be made from leather, and it had a buckle. You know, when you put on the pads and all that, you had to buckle the pads on your foot. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you never had Velcro.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
sometimes
know what you're talking about. Yes, yes.
That's all you were, Joel. That's all you
Yeah,
were.
that, oh, you heard that to Vivian, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah, man, yeah.
so sometimes when the pads are damaged, you know, the straps break off or the cricket bag is damaged, we used to give it to a man on Reddy's Road by the name of Shorty. You know, he was a dwarf, a midget, you know, and his shop was right in front of the gate of St. Richard's Primary, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He was very famous on Reddy's Road, Shorty, you know. So they must have given Shorty a lot of work over a period of time, and they didn't pay him. So one day Shorty came to the school drunk, you know. And now it's not like nowadays we're cursing and bad words. People are used to hearing them, and you're not taking me back when you hear a man curse, you know. Shorty let off a stream of bad words in front of the school gate, accusing Mr. Thorpe of being a scoundrel and a thief for owing him money, you know. And then you had a number of fellows in the school now who were they always sought to, you know, to be controversial. I won't call their names, because they are still around, but they rushed down to join Shorty, Oh, yes,
Yeah. Hey, give him some support, some moral support, right?
Yeah, give him some moral support, Who don't want to pay the man, look from where, where money and all the way for work, him do one thing, and they are out there with him, So the thing became so
Some
bad
set on. Yeah.
that Mrs. Millwood, now the guidance counselor who was upstairs in her office, had to dive into her handbag, and find the money that was owed to Shorty and pay him to get rid of him from out the school gate, I think that was like one of my most embarrassing moments,
Yeah.
because he came on and his behavior was so vulgar in front of the school, and speaking. Nobody speaks ill of Mr. Tharp in that manner,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
he had really, as we used to say back then, passed this place, but he was drunk,
And then he was joined
Yes.
by other students now who are again
Yeah,
bucketive, yeah.
The set on them.
Who probably have some axe to grind with Mr. Tarp and say, yeah man, this is our moment, exactly.
yeah. That was it, but it was funny,
Yeah. That was it,
I would like to just also place on record what I would consider to be like my saddest day at Meadowbrook.
Yeah man.
That is when we went on a school outing to Ocho Rios, and we lost a student to drowning, one of the Clark twins.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
We all
7th
went
of
up.
the 7th, 77. He died the 7th of the 7th, 77. Remember, if that's Hugh Clark, right?
Yes.
I
Oh, I
remember
didn't.
that.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
yes,
yeah.
yes. I remember that.
So what, Vivian, why that is significant to you? You were in New Clark's class? You'd have been, how you
I
became
happen to have
part of
been,
that trip?
don't know in what capacity I went there, if it was a prefect or what, but I was out at at Ocho Rios when it happened. When we
Yes.
were counting on students to come home, we were one man short, and we searched and searched and searched, and it was getting dark now, so we had to marshal everybody. The police was there. We were looking around. We did not find him, and we had to return to Kingston in the bus without him. Not a word was uttered between Ocho Rios and school by anybody.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. I
And then
remember that. Yep.
no, so I mean,
I went over to Mr. Thorpe's house to inform him that Hugh could not be found,
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I
They
just,
say he got pulled into some ship was out there and there was some heavy currents and he said he got sucked under.
the draft or something may have.
Yes. Yep. It was very sad. Dr. Morris took it very hard, remember?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember reading about that incident in the Gleaner, and that
7th of the
was
7th, 77. I remember
a
that
few
day.
months before I entered Meadowbrook.
yeah, so
Yeah.
Vivian, I see what I mean. That must have had a profound impact on you because you were there and you actually see it.
Yeah, man.
You leave and go with this man, this little boy, and you're coming back without him, and you have to go report to Mr. Tarp now and his parents.
Yes. I don't remember who was the teacher with me. If it was Mrs. Gooden, Mrs. Gooden who used to teach netball.
And geography, yes.
Yeah.
I think it was her. I'm not sure, but yes,
That's
it was
Miss Burton.
terrible.
That's Miss
Eh?
Burton. That's Miss Burton.
No, yeah, that Mrs. Good used to teach netball, Chris.
Yeah.
Mrs. Gooden is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't.
we used to think that she was Mr. Gooden's wife.
What she wasn't,
And
yeah.
yes, she taught me geography.
It's
Yes,
a
and she
shorter
did
lady, Chris. I
netball.
think she left by the time you came.
Oh, no,
Yes.
I know. She left shortly after I came. I know who you're talking. But yeah, Miss Burton that taught netball
Miss Burton taught netball afterwards.
and geography. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a sad day to Vivian. So Vivian, you were not at school when Christopher talked about this. Maybe Vivian was not at school where your friend.
Yeah, Vivian would have been at Meadowbrook. He would have been in fifth form.
What's that line?
The guy who was killed by his gardener in a Heavendale. Christopher talked about it on Film Podcast. Where friend you again, Chris?
Douglas Johnston. He and Howard and I were in the same class.
Vivian
You know, I
probably
can't
remember it.
remember.
You don't remember that incident, Vivian?
No.
That was an
A
incident.
student.
Yeah, man. Just give me a little bit of it, Chris, because you talk about it
Uh,
extensively.
so Doug had attended St. Catherine Primary, and he won a place to St. Catherine High. And his mom transferred him to Meadowbrook, and he would stay with his grandmother and an aunt on Hyde Close. And we started to bond. Self and Douglas. I kept goal, and Douglas played centre half. Paul wasn't a footballer, but he'd come and watch our interform football matches. And fixing to the term, Douglas was murdered by his gardener.
Yep,
And
I remember. It was sad.
Mr. Thorpe made the announcement on the 15th of November 1977, and boy, it was a frightening experience. Yeah, but not many people remember the incident, but some of us will never forget it. Much like you are unable to forget Hugh Clark's passing.
Well, it's good that we place these two gentlemen on our record here,
Definitely.
Yeah.
I heard about you, Clark, Vivian, but go ahead. No, but go ahead. Finish your thought, Vivian.
No, so I'm just saying how dreadful it was, to be on the bus minus one person. We didn't know what happened, but when you're in that situation, you are hoping for the best. So it's sort of surreal,
Mm-hmm.
You suspect the worst, but you are hoping for the best.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't know exactly definitively that he had drowned until the next morning, but we had to report to the headmaster that we came back with one student shot, and that was not a pleasant experience,
No. I heard about that incident, Vivian. I think I talked about what we had mentioned it by name before. Because he had a brother in the same class with him. He had a twin brother, I think, Dougie.
Yes,
he did. There was Hugh. I think his name was Nigel Clark. It was two of them. They were. Hugh was he was. I guess he was younger, so he was smaller bodied, and then his bigger brother was much bigger than him. A kind of brown skinned set of guys, Yeah. Very sad. Very, very sad.
Listen, Vivian, I'm glad you were mentioned all the people I'm not here before. Your brother Howard, who died after school.
Yes.
So that was a different thing completely. Died when he was an adult and left Meadowbrook. I think he was away, and Hugh Clark and Douglas Stewart, because these are all Meadowbrook people who not here to tell them story. So any opportunity we get to talk about these people who not here, we have to talk about it. That's how I see it, Vivian.
Yes.
That's how I see it.
And many more too. Many more. It's just that those were sad because they were our contemporaries at school, and so it hits home because we don't understand death and loss at that level, and it's shocking when you're right in the midst of it,
Yeah. That must have been something, Vivian. I can't tell. I can't imagine what you go through your mind when you come back with the bus and all them. I cannot imagine that at all. I can't put myself.
You're hoping that he's on another bus and you see him at school when you get there. This is how bad it is.
Yes. Yeah, it was dreadful.
All right. So let me ask you another question, Vivian. Let me just transition a little to any fun memories you remember Meadowbrook where you want to talk about. The floor are yours now. Anything where you can talk about where kind of fit for your play.
As I said, I just had a wonderful time in all aspects of my school life, and I think of my friends today, my contemporaries, and how well they are doing in the society and how well they have done. By that I mean the contributions that they have made to Jamaica's well-being, and it's well in keeping with the vision and mandate of the founders. And I think, that as we continue to let our light so shine, we should take pride in our heritage and where we are from, And I mean, even this little meeting here is an indication of Meadowbrook. We are all here talking and laughing. We haven't seen each other in 40 years, and we can and catch up as though we were at school day before yesterday, And this is the depth of relationship that Meadowbrookians enjoy,
Definitely.
None of us here are famous, or we are not like, we're outstanding sportsmen or are big jurists or politicians in the country, but we are certainly the backbone of this country in making it work, you know. And this is what our founders envisaged, you know. So I'm just so proud and pleased to have to call you fellows, you know, my friends, my schoolmates, my alumni, my contemporaries, you know. And I just wish for all the current students of Meadowbrook, you know, I hope that this podcast, this broadcast has given them some background as to the inheritance and the traditions that they carry, you know, and will motivate them to keep the torch flying and take pride in their school.
Well, I can tell you this, Vivian, this more than anyone will provide a certain substance and background and historical context, which I didn't know and wasn't aware of at all. So this one is important. This is an important one. I can tell you that. I've done a lot of podcasts, but in terms of historical context, in terms of what the school represents for the Jamaican society and what it represents for us, the information you provide here tonight, man, trust me. I know you say when I talk to you, Lance, I have some things to tell you. I didn't realize it will be so significant, Vivian. So I really appreciate that you come on and I set the record straight a certain way. You know? Well,
Thank you.
Not even set the record straight, just put it on record. It was not near for set straight, put it on record.
I listened to the previous podcasts, most of them, quite a few of them, and everybody is alluding to these great facts, you know. But I was just trying, and by your comments, obviously we have been successful in giving them a certain context and solidity, you know, that people understand it's not by chance, it's by design.
Right.
Yes.
Right, Vivian. If it's one thing I take from this, because I search for the answer to, you know, Vivian, and I say, how did Meadowbrook culture develop when I was at school? How did it come about? And this conversation answered a lot of that question for me. It wasn't by,
for me too.
It wasn't by chance. It wasn't by chance, Vivian. It was not by chance at all. And this, I appreciate that I know that now, because things, sometimes things just happen by happenstance. But most of the time when you get information, you realize that no, it's vision and leadership provided them things. It mean a whole lot, man. It does mean a whole lot, Vivian.
And you know something, it's like I saw pictures of Bottom Field. Bottom Field was one of the premier fields in Kingston for greenery and lushness, and Reds used to keep that place just it was an oasis. And I saw a picture of Bottom Field a couple months ago, and I couldn't believe it. It was just dumped up, and I heard that Keith White was very instrumental. I don't know who else was involved, but I heard that the field is now repaired to the point where they can play games there, because Wayne Campbell, Beanie, coaches the Manning Cup team, and I heard they could not play down there. They were playing up at Constant Spring, and I guess Keith White and whatever machinery he put together there got the field back where they can play on it. So that is solid, you know, input from a quality man of the of the nature of Keith White, you know.
I didn't mention that. I'm ask Vivian a question, and Doug and Chris, you can chime in on this. So let me ask this, because a student when I call me and say, Jelly, I want to start ask this question. I agree with him, right? And I'm gonna come up tomorrow. And the question is, what do you think can be done to inspire Meadowbrook past students to want to give back to the school more, Vivian? What do you think can be done in your mind?
Well, Lance, I think, you know, that they are loyal and committed to the school, but we are also very scattered, you know. I know for most of my contemporaries, a lot of them are no longer in Jamaica. They don't live in the country. And so it will take some of us who are here to identify projects perhaps and identify what needs to be done and then solicit support from these people. Because if you are not in the country and you are not in the mix, you know, it's very hard for you to take a leadership role in solving problems that are here when you don't live here, you know. So I think a lot of our people are scattered, not only from, I guess, from my year, but your year and subsequent years. You know, Jamaica is a country that has always had a very sort of migratory population. Yeah. So that has affected us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, that we could do something in that way. Another idea that came to me, you know, I was just mulling over this myself. This is a very innovative idea, and again, no other school does it, so probably it's a time for Meadowbrook to be a pioneer.
Yeah.
But I think we need to have like probably two parents' days a year where we organize seminars on parenting within the school. So if your child comes to Meadowbrook, you commit to making yourself available 2 days out of the year for seminars on parenting, you know, to be run by other parents and members of the school. Because whereas we concentrate on the children, a lot of the problems we are having in the school stems from incompetent parenting, you know.
That's
So
that's
it's
an excellent idea, Vivian. I think outside of the box, it sounds like you run Mr. Ward, Wally, Penry Ward, Reverend Ward, that inspired. Is an inspired thought that you get there. So I tell you that, yes, yeah.
yeah, this is something that Meadowbrook could lead in, you know, when you look at what's happening on the news with the attitude of parents, you know, just to bring in the parents and let them know what is expected of them by the school, what their role is in the school, how the school goes about accomplishing the things that it is supposed to do, where the school needs their cooperation, and how children are to be treated. You know, simple things like a Meadowbrook student should never be negatively motivated, you know.
No,
You always positively motivate a child. Simple things like that, a lot of parents don't know.
no.
And we could explain
What
what
you
these things mean, you know.
what you really said, no, Vivian, is like when a child passes a Meadowbrook, the parent must know say them pass when them are going to have a class to take how to become parent the Meadowbrook way. That's what you really
Yes,
saying.
yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's exactly what you're
Well,
saying. You know, leave it up to them
yeah,
to say right it or no.
no,
This is the
no,
commitment.
well,
If you want to come a Meadowbrook, you have to commit it to say, and maybe two not enough, but you can start and say, you know what?
yeah.
If you come a Meadowbrook, you have to commit to say at least once a month or whatever. I don't know the number, Vivian. We're gonna go
Yeah,
there.
one a bit much, but I just have it twice a year. You come in.
No,
We have
no. For say you have a parent class here because you're right about that,
parents.
Vivian. You're so right about that, right?
Yes, and all parents, if you don't want to come to that, send your child to somewhere else.
That's exactly what we're saying. That's exactly what we're saying,
Yeah,
Vivian. If you don't want to participate in learning how to do things a Meadowbrook way, your child won't be coming to Meadowbrook.
precisely.
It's as simple. I see nothing wrong with that. And again, being the way of Meadowbrook, you tell me tonight how Meadowbrook, the vision of Meadowbrook have. This is a visionary thing
Yeah.
I talk about, That's how I see it.
Yes.
So this is, and as I say, eventually this will go out, this conversation will go out, and so I love the idea of Vivian. I love that one.
The podcast is also a good springboard to let people understand who went to Meadowbrook, what their input is, what their thoughts are, and then now it's just a matter of somehow figuring out how do you link everything with how everything is so electronic these days. How do you link it so that we have we can funnel stuff back to the school?
Well,
It's
you're right. You're right, Dougie. Before you chime in, Chris, you're right. The podcast provide, in my mind, what the podcast would want anything else, is hopefully can spring up another Henry Ward, a 21st century Henry Ward.
communication. It starts
Yeah, man.
communication, and
What
once you
I'm saying,
start
somebody gonna hear
communication,
this,
it
a
builds
former
a
student gonna
fire.
hear this, and I say him have a
Yes.
vision, and him take it, and him have a big vision for Meadowbrook, and take it and run with it. I don't know who it is. You might hear
Yeah.
this year or next year, but it's like we want a 21st century Henry Ward, Vivian, to come in and say,
Yeah.
this is what we take Meadowbrook to, and just like your parenting. No, this is
Yes.
why your institute at Meadowbrook. We don't care what other school are doing. This is what we
Yeah.
doing. Other school are gonna follow we know, of course. So this is what we are gonna do. And I just said, Dougie, the information we are sharing among some conversation up on the podcast will motivate somebody eventually. Will motivate a new Henry Ward. We'll put it that way there. We'll put it that way. So Chris, you have any thoughts on the question I'm asked?
Everything, I agree with everything you said.
Okay, I hear you. That's easy enough. That sounds like the answer of an attorney. I agree.
Reunion is a good thing, you know. I mean, whether it's a digital reunion or, you know, sometimes the spreading out of the people. Because once you leave high school, sometimes we all go off in
Yeah,
our own
man. Yeah,
stations in life. But this is a funnel or a pathway
yeah,
that
man. Yeah.
can help somehow to get this
To
going.
start the inspiration again. Because this will start up the conversation. It wasn't there before. Last year it never existed.
Right.
We
Yes,
start
it
up the
will evolve.
conversation and more people are talk about it and I say, well, I'm not gonna bring up them conversation. That's why I'm not talk about it.
Well,
Because again,
Right.
we
I
have to
think
talk about the memory. We have to talk about the memories. It's how you're going to inspire a new generation of Meadowbrook people, just like how when the founders they do it.
well,
That's
I
Yes.
think the various podcasts have provided the raw materials for a strategic planning group
yeah. For somebody to take it and run with it, yeah.
that can, conceptualize some
Mm-hmm.
programs or activities
Yeah.
and try and get it executed that can, turn the school around. I think the school needs some turnaround in terms of perhaps
And in my mind, Chris, it's
a lot of areas.
It's bigger than the school, It's like me, I say,
Yeah.
the society itself needs turning around. But you're going to
Yeah,
start
but
with one school at a time. If
yeah,
Meadowbrook,
but if you look at our cricketing career at Meadowbrook, we won matches, we lost matches.
mm-hmm.
I can't ever recall of an incident on or off the cricket field where we were facing defeat and we cheated in an attempt to win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In other words, we played by the rules, win, lose, or draw.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we see a country overrun by crime, both white collar crime, corruption, and hardcore criminal activities.
Mm-hmm.
We play by the rules
And win.
and win, and
End
we
up
play by the
winning.
rules, and we lost playing by the rules. And we're never
Yeah.
ever we never ever attempted to cheat to win.
It wasn't winning at all, cost at all.
Right. So if we can, introduce a sort of a culture
Yeah.
to the student population that is there now and through the generation to come in to adopt this lifestyle, can make a difference.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Without a doubt. The vision is there. I mean, once you start talk, people hear the vision what we are talking about. Because it's a bigger vision. And trust me, Vivian, this conversation here tonight is a powerful conversation. Can I give you some history which I didn't know about? I always think, say, I just lucky for going Meadowbrook. But you provide the context. It wasn't luck.
No.
It wasn't luck what Meadowbrook became. I was lucky to choose Meadowbrook because my sister and my brother went there and I was glad I went there. And now I realized, say, I was more than delighted to be there. I wouldn't go no other school at all, Vivian. I thought it was just to the girls them alone, where I used to look on, but
Yeah.
that's a good enough reason. But no, I realized it's more than that. As you say, you go Meadowbrook as a boy and leave as an adult who can take on responsibility in a way where few other school provide opportunity, Vivian.
Yes.
Very few other school provide that opportunity. No, you confirm that to me and I say you could have do things that's big man at Meadowbrook. Where you get to away, and I say, you could have do that. No, I say why.
And the podcast is important because when I saw the pictures of Bottom Field, and I told a couple guys that I know, if I knew that Keith White was putting something together monetary wise, clearly he has invested a lot to do it. I personally would have contributed to that because when I saw the pictures of the field, Meadowbrook Bottom Field, it was like a jungle. So the podcast is a means of channeling communication because you can't contribute to what you don't know, and certain things might be more meaningful to you. Like when I saw Bottom Field, it broke my heart to know that that was one of the pristine fields and it was dumped up with like a forest.
Well,
so if he had said to me, I need a contribution from the Meadowbrook the Meadowbrook old students out there, I can tell you if something was put up, I would contribute to helping with cleaning up that field.
You see, sorry, go ahead, Chris. It sounds like you had something there, Vivian.
No, I was saying, back in the old days, Mr. Barnes personally looked after Bottom Field, It was not left to chance. That was his area, Mr. Steve so were up in the school, but Mr. Barnes, he lived down at bottom
Yeah,
field.
it was like his.
And,
It was his. Yeah, yeah.
and maintain the place. So I don't know if when that fell to the wayside, but it's not just about money, you have to have somebody who is in charge,
Somebody who
Yeah.
cares,
and
in charge, and who care
I
about
don't.
it, like our
They
Reds
put
did.
up
Yeah.
a hell of a concrete wall. It's down there. I couldn't believe when my dad died, and I've gone back to Jamaica a few times, and I drove past there, and they have this 15, 20-foot wall down there, and it's like, whose idea was that? Because then you can't see in the field, and it's not a pleasant thing to look at, and I think it's a security risk. And as you rightly say, Vivian, I don't know if there's a custodian down there taking care of that field.
Right.
What need to happen though?
Mhm.
It's like we need to have. Sorry, Chris. Go ahead. Someone I got something to say.
No, I said, the field has an issue, but this is a discussion that especially venue or means of communication and discussing it will be required. I've heard certain things and speak to a bigger issue.
Yeah,
Things don't just happen like that, Jelly.
No, just like what Vivian put it. This, as you're right, Chris. This is a discussion I want to take behind the paid wall, as I always say.
Yes.
Because it's going to take strategic planning, Vivian, and vision
Yes.
for turning it around. Because what we really need, it's almost like we can't wait till something happens for say we're going to try to fix bottom field. We need a strategy in place to say this is a board or a governing body or a structure where we know say this is where the funds are going to go through. We know how them are designed to get funds. But as I said, we can't talk about it in front of the paid wall, We have to talk about it. Because strategy do I talk about. It can't be public discussion, Vivian, or Chris and Dougie. So I just said we're not going to further with it because eventually we're going to come up with ideas in terms of what to do and what needs to be done because we're not going to there forever. In my mind, we want to leave all the way. We want to leave something for Meadowbrook where a legacy is going to last for 100 years.
Yes.
It can be done enough. That's my vision enough. It can be done enough. Put a structure in place where say 100 years from now, just like how Jamaica College or Calabar or KC have them big time organization, them can build track and big stadium up at JC. I don't see why Meadowbrook can put something in place where we do something like that. There's no reason why we can't do it, But it take strategy and planning, not public discussion like what we are trying now. This is just we throw out the ideas. So I get what you say, Chris. You're right about that.
So, Vivian, I know you're still with us and you're not going anywhere. So, how would you like the Meadowbrook family to remember you?
Oh boy, I am a part of the whole. I would just like to be remembered as an average example of what Meadowbrook can do and can achieve.
Right.
I am just a part of the Meadowbrook team, and I'm just so happy to be able to remember, those who have gone on before us and persons who have laid the foundation that we have benefited from. And I know that everybody who attends the school and has absorbed this ethos automatically contributes to perpetuating that method, that the school is famous for, So just continue to be loyal and to make yourselves available to help when asked to do so. Those who can take initiative in certain areas and provide leadership, do so. And we must connect with the current generation of Meadowbrook students. I am guilty of that. I have lived out of the country for many years, and I have lost touch with the current generation of Meadowbrookians. And perhaps stemming from this podcast, my immediate duty might be to make some contacts at the school and see where I can be useful. So
right,
you're not the only one guilty of that, Vivian. I was up until I started doing this podcast, basically, witness protection, disappear from the Meadowbrook scene for years, for 20 years. Vivian. So it's not you alone. So I feel no way. So I know it.
But you see, Jelly, because of, I don't know how you came up with this concept. I don't know. That's why anytime you say to me, Doug, can you help? I will gladly do it because it is something novel, it's different, and it's going to last. And it's going to make a difference. So kudos to you for coming up with this concept and being able to link with the people because it's the genesis of something that can turn really great.
Yeah, man, we can't turn on Meadowbrook with them conversation, yeah, man. I agree with that. That me agree with. And when I
Yeah,
start,
and
yeah, go
the
ahead.
technologies here, that can eliminate boundaries, national boundaries,
Yeah,
geographic
yeah, yeah, yeah,
boundaries.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, just a question of putting together
Yeah,
a
man.
program.
That's the vision and the strategy. That's what I want, and that will come soon. That will come. But let me ask you another question, Vivian. I just brought up something there, and Ian Chung asked me to ask this question, and I added to my question them, and I say, how it make you feel bringing up all these Meadowbrook memories back after all these years? How it make you personally feel?
Well, Meadowbrook is always a part of me. The school is deep down within me, and I've never grown it out, and I've never forgotten it. And the people that are there, sometimes when I look on my Facebook and I see friends, persons who I went to school with, even though I may not reach out to them there and then, but I keep touch with these people. I'm interested in what's happening in their lives. And to bring up these memories, I'm just glad to be able to place them on record. It makes me feel good to know that they are being heard, and that it's permanent, that other people will have it as a source of reference long after I am gone, to be able to remember these things, because I have always known these things. I've always wanted to share them, but this podcast has provided the opportunity to do so, because these things I consider them not only to be about great Meadowbrookians, but great Jamaicans. This is what the school is about, of building Jamaica into the country that we want to see it become. And sometimes we are surrounded by so much negativity and persons who may not understand the length of our journey and the depth of our achievement, and to understand that life has its vicissitudes, its ups and downs. Sometimes we are on a trough, or in a trough, another time we are on a crest. And that's the way it is with most things. So Meadowbrook is on its way to another crest again, and hopefully we will be a part of that.
I agree with you, Vivian, because that's one of the motivation why I started this conversation. Because just like you, I thought my memories of Meadowbrook was going in a black hole. And I know a whole heap of athletes around me, including your brother, the two cricketers them beside me, contribute a whole heap to Meadowbrook and make Meadowbrook great in the 1980s. And it's like most of the people who go Meadowbrook, it's almost like nobody not talk about it, and I say it's forgotten. And somebody said to me, but if you don't talk about it, who will? It's not for write your own history, You can't expect somebody to come talk about history, So that was my motivation, Vivian. I didn't want the history of Meadowbrook. We mean whom we contribute to. Dougie contribute to. Chris contribute. And you know, come on, and I said the same thing, say. You wanted to say them thing a long time. Go in a black hole, it will just go and go with you. I said, not again.
Right. I never knew all of this about Meadowbrook. I know that Meadowbrook, for me, I love that school because the Reverend Ashley Smith was my uncle, and I never passed my common entrance, and he got me into Meadowbrook, and I would never change anything again. It gave me my wife. The Meadowbrook years were just magical. And I always wondered, where did Meadowbrook get the money to build those two buildings? When we went there, there was a cricket pitch up by the close to the assembly hall, and that's where those two industrial arts buildings are built. I never knew that Meadowbrook had such an influence on the school map to be a pilot for different things. And that's what made the school so unique. Yeah. And maybe we didn't know and we took it for granted, but it made us so much greater.
Yeah, we did take it for granted, Dougie.
And I didn't know that until Vivian mentioned these things. It's like, I didn't know that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Until this conversation tonight, I never quite take it for granted. I was just wondering where the greatness of Meadowbrook come from. That's me. I wonder how we could have do what we could have do in the time where there was a collaboration. Then Mr. Top was a charter principal. Miss McLean would allow somebody like you, Vivian, to be on the school board. I said, where that come from? I didn't know about that, But it's like in my time, I know say we could have go to the school and say no, Pekka can't leave. And the school listen to us. And I say, man, try not to talk about it. And I said, Jelly, and I said, the school is different. And I couldn't put my finger upon it until tonight, Vivian. Now, tell you
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why all the other boys from the other high schools in Meadowbrook was a homely, calming place. And that's why people don't want to go home after school. There's always something there. And other school folks would gravitate towards the school. Now you know why.
Yeah,
it was just a cool school. It was just an oasis.
Yeah, definitely.
And the girls were very pretty. The girls were beautiful.
No, we can't stop that with them. So, Vivian, another question for you. What is the best learning experience you get from Meadowbrook?
Well, it's in keeping with the schools, with the schools raison d'etre, you know, as I said, our values are cooperation, fairness, and justice, you know, in the hearts of the student. Those are the words of the Reverend Ward, you know. This is what the school is about.
Repeat that, Vivian, because I think we need to have that, you know. Cooperation, fairness, and justice.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Meadowbrook has these traits, you know.
Yeah.
So you can see our sense of justice. You know, you talk about the incident of allowing Pecker to continue in the school. That's a justice matter. You know, and everybody in the school realized that it would be unjust to act in that way. And this is what we're about in Meadowbrook. And so the staff and the administrative staff and the teachers in the school, they accommodate that because that's what we are about. That's the tradition of Meadowbrook.
Yep. It has a magnet to it because I had an opportunity to leave Meadowbrook and I told my dad I'm not interested. And I don't care what happened, but to me, Meadowbrook was just, I would not trade my years at Meadowbrook for anything, not one bit, if I had to do it over again.
No, I agree with that, Dougie. I wouldn't trade that at all for the world.
Yes.
So let me ask
because you meet the best friends during that time. Yep.
Let me ask you that question, Vivian. What message would you have for existing students or future students who are going to hear this podcast?
Well, I mean, we are apprising them of their history, and what we are asking is to take pride in that history and motivation from it. Meadowbrook has been through a lot. It has had its vicissitudes, you know, and what you are going through now, your future is in your hands, as it was in mine. And so, what you have to do is be optimistic. You know, there's no such thing as a pessimistic leader. You have got to be optimistic. Look on the bright side and always look to see how you can improve yourself and others. That's what we're about at Meadowbrook. Cooperation, fairness, and justice. You know, let that guide you through your school life and let your light so shine among men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. That's what the school is about.
Amen. Yeah.
I like your second call in, Vivian.
Say again?
So
I like your second call in.
The gospel according to Vivian.
Preach here, Vivian. Don't pay them no attention at all. Preach on.
One thing you must understand, you know, Vivian. See, your host, Jelly, he and some others, including a group of gentlemen known as the Union, lethal with their mouth, you know. So you probably.
But Vivian aware of that and gang himself, man. Keep telling about Vivian on the mess up our camp. So Vivian gang himself, man. Don't worry. Vivian can't take as much as him can give. Don't worry.
So Vivian, where did your military career take you? When you left Meadowbrook and you went into the JDF, what was, I mean, sum up for us, for me, where did that take you? You went to the JDF and then you went, what was that path like to where you went into the airline industry?
Went to the JDF, went to the Indian Military Academy for 2 years, and then came back home to Jamaica Went to flying school for 1 year in Canada, the military flying school. Then I came back to Jamaica and served in the Jamaica Defense Force Air Wing in the fixed wing flight, the #1 flight, which is where the fixed wing aircraft of the JDF are based. So
Twin Otters, right? You flew the Twin Otters?
Twin Otter, Highlander, Cessna,
Wow.
you know. So
Yes.
then I became the operations officer, the assistant operations officer of the Air Wing. Then went to headquarters JDF and became a staff officer there in charge of logistics. And then I left the army and went to Barbados. I got married to a woman who's from Barbados. I met her through the army, actually. You know, the JDF had a formidable track team at the time, a long distance running team. And we entered a competition in Barbados. So I flew the airplane that carried the team down there. And Margaret, she was in the Barbados Army. So she was a liaison person to the JDF contingent. So both of us met there and continued to communicate and got married some years after. So then after that, I came back to Jamaica. I joined Air Jamaica Express, which was the domestic airline that flew to the different parts of Jamaica, Montego Bay, Negril, Kendro, Boscobel, those places. So I did like 5 years, and then I joined Air Jamaica proper and spent 8 years there. And then I left and went to Emirates Airlines, where I became the chief pilot, the assistant chief pilot of the Airbus fleet over there. And I spent 15 years in that airline, you know.
Wow.
And then COVID came along, and I took early retirement from the airline and came home to Jamaica, and I've been here for 3 years now. So I'm more or less an aviation consultant now.
So you don't do any more flying, or you don't do any more flying, or no?
Well, I have not had occasion to do any more yet, but I'm still able to. But right now I consult more on the organization of airlines, you know.
So if somebody give you the opportunity, you think you could have landed a helicopter at Meadowbrook again?
not without training, no. I would have to have competent.
No, you mean those helicopters have changed. That was the Huey and the Bell Ranger. Now I guess they have all sorts of new technology, right, Vivian?
Yes. Now it will be a lot easier to land there.
The last couple of questions, Vivian, because believe it or not, as soon as you take it, we're there to talk for 2.5 hours. I know coming like about 20 minutes coming like we're there to talk. This has been a wonderful conversation. But let me ask you a couple of last questions. What message you give? What message you give to your friends and family where you learn from Meadowbrook? What you learn from Meadowbrook, you pass on to your friends and family.
Well, it's not one thing. I think I can sum it up in cooperation and love. You know, that is what Meadowbrook is about. You know, Meadowbrook is a school that has always been a small fish in a big pond, and we have survived by cooperating with each other and just our love for each other. You know, when I think back on the early days before we started distinguishing ourselves in different areas, morale was always high at Meadowbrook. You know, even when we played a football match and lost terribly, we didn't turn on our team. You know, we were still friends. It was a big joke, and they were still popular gentlemen and well beloved by the school population. We saw them as being an extension of ourselves. Yeah. They were one of us.
That is true, Vivian. That is so true to that. With a lose, but
so,
still proud of our school, yeah.
Yes, because I think what we took pride in is the fact that they represented the school, which meant they represented us. It wasn't just about winning or losing, you know. Meadowbrook is a school of high esprit de corps, you know.
So even though we don't mount them the hardest and take them on the hardest and make them feel away, we still love them same way. You're right about that, Vivian.
Deeply. At no time are we disappointed or you hear that, oh, the man cannot come to school because he's ashamed. No, that has never happened.
What it did was toughen up the people, man. We are playing sports. That's
the day after the worst defeat, nobody stays away from school because of embarrassment or fear of heckling. I've never heard of that at Meadowbrook.
No, that is true, Vivian. That is so true to right. Him no get a whole heap of mountain, but him come see me, come take him mountain because
yes, because it is good natured and meant with love.
Exactly,
the man
exactly.
Representing you. When you represent Meadowbrook, Meadowbrook is not a disembodied entity. You know? Meadowbrook is a living and breathing entity. It is us.
Yeah. You're so right.
Yes.
I never looked at that way before, but you're so right about that. Right. You never feel ashamed for coming to Meadowbrook at all. You never felt that.
No. That is just among us. But we are always just as proud of each other as we have always been. And that is not just among the students, from among the staff who set the tone.
Yeah. What about staff member on here who have said the same thing?
By chance, Mr. Thorpe, Miss McLennan, they never lambasted a losing team. No. Never, ever.
No. It was always a nurturing spirit, no matter what, man. Nurturing.
Yes.
Always.
And this was transmitted to the students, but these are the things that make Meadowbrook unique and special, you know.
Yeah, I remember Miss McLennan saying, play up, and play the game. And I could never understand what she meant by that. And as I got older and out in life, I understand what she meant. Play up, and play the game.
Yeah. Of course.
Miss McLennan,
of course. Yes, man. We are custodians of a great tradition, you know, and beneficiaries of it, you know. I cannot articulate or praise enough the founders and the staff of that school.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they took a care, because I remember how I got into cricket. Mr. Senior saw me playing and said, "Hey, look at this guy. He needs to play the Colts cricket." That's how I got in cricket, from Mr. Senior. Just an arbitrary. He just said, "You can play cricket, and we're gonna." Yes, they nurture you, and they remember Mr. Glaze. It's like it's the family of Meadowbrook. Everybody cared, and it made a difference.
Mr. Senior, that son go to school. Vivian mentor him, Christopher, Baba as we call him. Yeah, so we have a mentor.
Yeah.
It was a family.
He was a great.
Yep. Anyway, second to last. Not really a question, Vivian, but this I always ask everybody who come on. This question and the co-host them too. Is there any question or topic or anything where I could have asked I didn't ask? Anything where you want to bring up I didn't bring up at all? The floor is yours now. Put it away there.
Oh, all right. Well, I think I've said most of what I would have liked to have said. You have given me a wonderful opportunity to hear my views and to voice what I had to say, Lance. I cannot think of anything else, you know, else to say, you know, except, as I said, you know, that I just hope that current students of the school will remember our traditions, remember our raison d'etre, you know, we are being trained to be exemplary citizens, you know, and that ought to be reflected in how we interact with each other and with the wider society around us. So a Meadowbrookian should not have the type of you know, disputes and fights and so that we see in the media occurring at other schools. It's not a part of our tradition, our background, our reason for from being at school, you know. So I just hope that by listening to us who have passed through the school before, we will recapture that sense of who we are and what we are about.
Yeah, man, it's not the Meadowbrook way, Vivian. I didn't like to talk about it. When I see it, I didn't watch it. I say that's not the Meadowbrook way. I mean, I go in true Meadowbrook fashion. I mean, I go make nobody feel bad about it and cuss about it. I just say it's not the Meadowbrook way.
Yes,
right. There has to be another way. But you know, what I can say, it's just to be in the company. And this is the first I've spoken to Vivian since 1980, 81, when I left Meadowbrook. And I am proud of everybody here and all the Meadowbrook people who have taken their stations in life. And when I hear Vivian, how he has gone through his life, I am proud to be associated with Vivian. I'm proud to have gone to school with him and looked up to him at Meadowbrook. I always looked at Vivian as a very serious individual, Mr. Cadet, Mr. Sergeant Major for the school. And I'm just looking at it saying how your life has turned out to be a good example. Same for you, Jelly. You come with a novel thing here. Cheddar, your contribution in your legal areas, and it is just a pleasure for us to have this fellowship. And that's what I would say to everybody and the Meadowbrook people listening. Keep in touch, live and let live, and just do no harm. Do no harm.
And Chris, is there any question whether you like ask Vivian when we never get to ask or you think I overlook?
No, we had a comprehensive discussion. It's just that, looking on, when I entered Meadowbrook and I saw Vivian, I saw Mark there fully bearded. All those guys, giants, and you just stayed away from them, and you just didn't know what they were like. And now, 40 plus years later, we're having this conversation. Looking back, I said, boy, maybe if I had more courage, and I would have tried to befriend them back in the day, But
I come up, Chris. I will invite you and to come befriend them.
Mark?
Mark, yeah, man, yeah. One of the brothers died. Two of them have come up now.
I'm telling you.
Early February, yeah.
It was a sight to behold, man. It seemed fully bearded, man. And you saw Stanley 6'3", Nicholas Ford about 6'4". Bobby Shim, the late Bobby Shim, all of them were giants, and you're intimidated by them. You say, man, how am I going to survive here 5 years?
Yeah, you were almost afraid to make eye contact with them because it's like, is this a big man or is this? You almost said to yourself, what's happening to me? I don't have any beard. What's going on here? I have no status. I have no status here.
I have to find a way in a new institution, new environment, new syllabus, new teachers, everything. And you see these guys, man, you just keep to yourself.
I have a last question I ask everybody, Well, the first question and the last question. What made Meadowbrook magical, Vivian?
It was the staff and the students, I think the staff's adherence to the founder's vision is what made the school what it is,
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think you think the staff were there by chance or it was selective in terms of say Mr. Top or Mr. McLennan?
Well, Jelly, that interview I had with Donald Bogle, I found it to be most instructive, because I never knew anybody who was in the school that far back and in a position of authority. But what Mr. Bogle said is that, when he was asked to come to Meadowbrook, he had an interview with the Reverend Ward, who he considered to be one of the most influential Jamaicans of his time. And basically, the Reverend Ward outlined to him what vision he has for the school and what he wants it to become. And it is based on that conversation that he took the job. So that is well in keeping with what I know to be the reality of Meadowbrook, This is why I'm saying, that people were carefully chosen who could understand where we were going with the school, bearing in mind Jamaica's educational history and where we wanted independent Jamaica to be, Yeah, and we have been working on that ever since.
I see exactly what you're saying, Vivian. It's like these people end up at Meadowbrook weren't there by chance. Miss McLennan, Mr. Top, all of the people, the teachers we go there and say was almost like a vision from Dr. Is that from Reverend Ward? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
right, because Mr. Thorpe was at Calabar, if I remember.
Yeah.
I heard he was at Calabar and then he came to take over Meadowbrook. Is that right? He was teaching at Calabar, right? That's what I heard.
I think he took it from Mr. Bogle.
Yeah.
Right, and then I remember these theologians, Mr. Grant, and Reverend Earl Fame. Remember him? He
Robert
taught
Jan.
me religion.
Him is that.
Earl Fame. Yeah, and Earl Fame was a top theologian in Jamaica. He taught us religious studies. Reverend Earl Fame. Remember him?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But you
So
know,
I
Jelly,
think those people were selected to help to influence Meadowbrook from the church, United Church of Jamaica, Cayman and Grand Cayman. The Presbyterian, they were a part of the apparatus to guide that school.
It was part
I
of the
believe
vision.
they
It was
just
part of the vision,
yes,
Dougie. They
yes,
weren't there by
yes,
chance.
yes.
No, I think it was.
No, I don't. I agree
the
with
vision
that.
conversation confirmed that to me tonight. The staff who ended up having Mr. Beckford, Mr. Year, they came there because they fit into a vision of what Mr. Ward, Reverend Ward wanted.
Yeah.
well, Jelly, you know, when you look at the generational change that's taking place now, I think the vision of, you know, cooperation, fairness, and justice, I think that's absent from the present generation of students at the school, and maybe the leadership. When by leadership, you're talking about leadership including the board. And you know, if students are just attending a school to get CXCs rather than an education.
Cooperation, the justice and the fairness. What vision that? No, that's a fair. That's why we're glad we have them conversation.
That's not only, as you said, from Meadowbrook. That I think is a wider cousin for the society that we need to refocus on those things everywhere.
We know Meadowbrook a cutting edge, Dougie, so we have to lead the way. That's what Vivian has said to it. And we Meadowbrook was cutting edge in 1960 when it was founded. And it looked like we have lost that edge because we lose that three thing what Vivian talked about. Cooperation, fairness, and justice. And that need to write on the wall at the school, and a man knows say, or a teacher coming at the school, him knows say, more than anything else, it's not about say you win or lose, or how much six you have. This are the premium thing where Meadowbrook must come back about. Cooperation, fairness, and justice, Vivian.
And then we the cricketers, this is what we acquired, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was part of it, Chris, exactly.
And we have our friendship, all the footballers and the cricketers have remained friends.
Exactly.
For over 40 years,
Exactly. Vivian,
they got the inspiration from Meadowbrook kicked off for the cricket because of the dread, and he brought a level of discipline to that school and could instill a motivational concept in the heads of the boys that he was coaching, and he brought the discipline because he has told me things about how I was batting, and the man was just dead on with regards to his advice. So he elevated the school as one of many teachers, and so discipline is a big part of it too. And he was invested in the school. I remember him packing up that VW with the, you know, whatever it could carry, could hardly drive, but he was there with that car. Remember?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
He was invested. He was invested in it.
Well, let me tell this, Vivian, and I mentioned it earlier, because we talk about, I want P. Brown, our Captain Brown, and no incident epitomizes the spirit of Meadowbrook for me more than, and I'm going to have to mention the rest here, Vivian. And you know, so I can't run as fast as Howard, right?
Yes.
And I take I challenge P. Brown to a race at Bottomfield. I call the slowest 100-meter ever run.
Yeah.
I'm saying you're sanction the race there, you know. In terms of say, I think I'm literally half an island with it. But it doesn't matter who win or lose that race, you know, because man joke and say that race even finish it, you know, the race is still a run. It was so slow.
Yeah.
But that race that race, Vivian, epitomized the spirit of need to get back at Meadowbrook, man. I was in sixth form, you know. And P. Brown was in just start school.
Yes.
I was in upper six, you know, but we could have a camaraderie between a big sixth farmer. I was in upper six, and him just start school. And the competitiveness and the
that's the Meadowbrook way, you know?
Yeah, man, exactly. It wasn't about say I play for nothing or win for nothing. It's like, and him went on to leave Meadowbrook and become a big time in a Euro field too. He was there, and him come and give him story. You see me, I said, captain the Sunlight team and all them way there. So it's a Meadowbrook way, as I said, Vivian. It is a Meadowbrook way. That's why I can't stop talking about that story there, you know, because it and you can confirm to me, and I say it wasn't by accident. It was by design that I was comfortable at Meadowbrook for you able to do that and make as a first farmer feel comfortable for take on that challenge. It was
Yes.
That's exactly what I feel about that, man. That's exactly what I
Yes.
feel about that. So anyway, I always ask, any closing remarks, and Dougie, any closing remarks before I close out this program, yeah?
No, just happy for the fellowship tonight, and it is priceless. So thank you, Vivian, thank you, Jelly, thank you, Cheddar.
Thank you, gentlemen. I echo that. Thank you.
And Dougie, Chris, any closing remarks?
No, I'm just saying this is the second time I ever spoke to Vivian, and no better. No, everything happens in its own time, I just regret that I, wasn't brave enough to approach him back in the day, and
But he didn't have a beard. He didn't have a beard, Cheddar. He was clean shaven.
It's only he had Mr. Thorpe's demeanor, so I
present.
Yeah, the present. So you kept away from management,
Present and stature, Dougie.
Yeah, man.
Yes. No, you can't approach a man. Yes. So Vivian, any closing remarks before I close out this?
No, Joey, I have nothing else to add. We have had a wonderful discussion, and I hope that, the Meadowbrookians listening and persons generally who have an interest in Meadowbrook, especially parents of Meadowbrook students, will take something away from this to understand that, your son or daughter who's attending our school is very special and very valuable to us. And, we hope one day to be able to put in place measures that we can help and guide parents as to what the Meadowbrook way and expectation is when it comes to parenting. So thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Vivian.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I like when you put it, Vivian, our school. I love that. So, gentlemen, Douglas Crooks, Christopher Cheddar, and Vivian Thomas, I thank you all for come share the night and come share the memories. And God bless all of us, including myself, and God bless that great school at 2 Meadowbrook Avenue. And peace and love for all. Have a good night, gentlemen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Blessings and guidance, gentlemen. Good
Keep
night.
safe.
Yeah,
Keep
man.
safe and healthy.
Yes.
Good.
All right.
Bye.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Meadowbrook Memories. And remember to give us all the support and encouragement you can on whatever social media platform you are listening. And special thanks to my production manager, Kyle Prince, who takes care of everything involved in getting the podcast out every week. And without him, this podcast would not be possible. It is his expertise that allows me to do what I love doing every week, having great conversations about Meadowbrook Memories, and he's responsible for everything else. So again, thanks to my production manager, Kyle Prince.